so that her judgment may say to that which is befallen her by way of cross, This thou art in very deed, and according to thy true nature, notwithstanding that in the judgment of opinion thou dost appear otherwise, and her discretion to the present object, thou art that which I sought for. For whatsoever it be that is now present shall ever be embraced by me as a fit and seasonable object, both for my reasonable faculty and for my sociable or charitable inclination to work upon. And that which is principal in this matter is that it may be referred either unto the praise of God or to the good of men. For either unto God or man whatsoever it is that doth happen in the world hath in the ordinary course of nature its proper reference, neither is there anything that in regard of nature is either new or reluctant and intractable, but all things both usual and easy. 40. Then hath a man attained to the estate of perfection in his life and conversation, when he so spends every day as if it were his last day, never hot and vehement in his affections, nor yet so cold and stupid as one that had no sense, and free from all manner of dissimulation. 41. Can the gods who are immortal, for the continuance of so many ages, bear without indignation with such and so many sinners as have ever been? Yea, not only so, but also take such care for them, that they want nothing, and dost thou so grievously take on as one that could bear with them no longer, thou that art but for a moment of time? Yea, thou that art one of those sinners thyself. A very ridiculous thing it is, that any man should dispense with vice and wickedness in himself, which is in his power to restrain, and should go about to suppress it in others, which is altogether impossible. 42. What object soever our reasonable and sociable faculty doth meet with, that affords nothing either for the satisfaction of reason, or for the practice of charity, she worthily doth think unworthy of herself. 43. When thou hast done well, and another is benefited by thy action, must thou like a very fool look for a third thing besides, as that it may appear unto others also that thou hast done well, or that thou mayest in time receive one good turn for another? No man useth to be weary of that which is beneficial unto him, but every action according to nature is beneficial. Be not weary then of doing that which is beneficial unto thee, whilst it is so unto others. 44. The nature of the universe did once certainly before it was created, whatsoever it hath done since, deliberate and so resolve upon the creation of the world. Now since that time, whatsoever it is, that is and happens in the world, is either but a consequent of that one and first deliberation, or, if so be that this ruling rational part of the world takes any thought and care of things particular, they are surely his reasonable and principal creatures, that are the proper object of his particular care and providence. This often thought upon will much conduce to thy tranquillity. The 8th Book. 1. This also among other things may serve to keep thee from vainglory, if thou shalt consider that thou art now altogether incapable of the commendation of one who all his life long, or from his youth at least, hath lived a philosopher's life. For both unto others and to thyself especially it is well known that thou hast done many things contrary to that perfection of life. Thou hast therefore been confounded in thy course, and henceforth it will be hard for thee to recover the title and credit of a philosopher. And to it also is thy calling and profession repugnant. If therefore thou dost truly understand what it is that is of moment indeed, as for thy fame and credit, take no thought or care for that. Let it suffice thee, if all the rest of thy life, be it more or less, thou shalt live as thy nature requireth, or according to the true and natural end of thy making. Take pains, therefore, to know what it is that thy nature requireth, and let nothing else distract thee. Thou hast already had sufficient experience, that of those many things that hitherto thou hast erred and wandered about, thou couldst not find happiness in any of them, not in syllogisms and logical subtleties, not in wealth, not in honour and reputation, not in pleasure, in none of all these. Wherein then is it to be found? In the practice of those things, which the nature of man, as he is a man, doth require. How then shall he do those things, if his dogmata or moral tenets and opinions, from which all motions and actions do proceed, be right and true? Which be those dogmata? Those that concern that which is good or evil, as that there is nothing truly good and beneficial unto man, but that which makes him just, temperate, courageous, liberal, and that there is nothing truly evil and hurtful unto man, but that which causeth the contrary effects. 2. Upon every action that thou art about, put this question to thyself: how will this, when it is done, agree with me? Shall I have no occasion to repent of it? Yet a very little while, and I am dead and gone, and all things are at end. What then do I care for more than this, that my present action, whatsoever it be, may be the proper action of one that is reasonable, whose end is the common good, who in all things is ruled and governed by the same law of right and reason, by which God himself is. 3. Alexander, Caius, Pompeius. What are these to Diogenes, Heraclitus, and Socrates? These penetrated into the true nature of things, into all causes and all subjects, and upon these did they exercise their power and authority. But as for those, as the extent of their error was, so far did their slavery extend. 4. What they have done they will still do, although thou shouldst hang thyself. First let it not trouble thee, for all things, both good and evil, come to pass according to the nature and general condition of the universe, and within a very little while all things will be at an end, no man will be remembered. As now of Africanus, for example, and Augustus, it is already come to pass. Then secondly, fix thy mind upon the thing itself, look into it, and remembering thyself that thou art bound nevertheless to be a good man, and what it is that thy nature requireth of thee as thou art a man, be not diverted from what thou art about, and speak that which seemeth unto thee most just, only speak it kindly, modestly, and without hypocrisy. 5. That which the nature of the universe doth busy herself about is that which is here, to transfer it thither, to change it, and thence again to take it away, and to carry it to another place, so that thou needest not fear any new thing. For all things are usual and ordinary, and all things are disposed by equality. 6. Every particular nature hath content, when in its own proper course it speeds. A reasonable nature doth then speed, when first in matter of fancies and imaginations it gives no consent to that which is either false, uncertain. Secondly, when, in all its motions and resolutions, it takes its level at the common good only, and that it desireth nothing, and flieth from nothing, bet what is in its own power to compass or avoid. And lastly, when it willingly and gladly embraceth whatsoever is dealt and appointed unto it by the common nature. For it is part of it, even as the nature of any one leaf is part of the common nature of all plants and trees, but that the nature of a leaf is part of a nature both unreasonable and unsensible, and which in its proper end may be hindered, or which is servile and slavish, whereas the nature of man is part of a common nature which cannot be hindered, and which is both reasonable and just. From whence also it is that according to the worth of everything she doth make such equal distribution of all things, as of duration, substance, form, operation, and of events and accidents. But herein consider not whether thou shalt find this equality in everything absolutely and by itself, but whether in all the particulars of some one thing taken together, and compared with all the particulars of some other thing, and them together likewise. 7. Thou hast no time nor opportunity to read. What then? Hast thou not time and opportunity to exercise thyself, not to wrong thyself, to strive against all carnal pleasures and pains, and to get the upper hand of them, to contemn honour and vainglory, and not only, not to be angry with them, whom towards thee thou doest find unsensible and unthankful, but also to have a care of them still, and of their welfare. 8. Forbear henceforth to complain of the trouble of a courtly life, either in public before others, or in private by thyself. 9. Repentance is an inward and self-reprehension for the neglect or omission of somewhat that was profitable. Now whatsoever is good is also profitable, and it is the part of an honest virtuous man to set by it, and to make reckoning of it accordingly. But never did any honest virtuous man repent of the neglect or omission of any carnal pleasure. No carnal pleasure, then, is either good or profitable. 10. This, what is it in itself and by itself, according to its proper constitution? What is the substance of it? What is the matter or proper use? What is the form or efficient cause? What is it for in this world, and how long will it abide? Thus must thou examine all things that present themselves unto thee. 11. When thou art hard to be stirred up and awaked out of thy sleep, admonish thyself and call to mind that to perform actions tending to the common good is that which thine own proper constitution and that which the nature of man do require. But to sleep is common to unreasonable creatures also, and what more proper and natural, yea, what more kind and pleasing, than that which is according to nature? 12. As every fancy and imagination presents itself unto thee, consider, if it be possible, the true nature and the proper qualities of it, and reason with thyself about it. 13. At thy first encounter with any one, say presently to thyself, This man, what are his opinions concerning that which is good or evil, as concerning pain, pleasure, and the causes of both, concerning honour and dishonour, concerning life and death, thus and thus. Now if it be no wonder that a man should have such and such opinions, how can it be a wonder that he should do such and such things? I will remember then that he cannot but do as he doth, holding those opinions that he doth. Remember that as it is a shame for any man to wonder that a fig tree should bear figs, so also to wonder that the world should bear anything, whatsoever it is which in the ordinary course of nature it may bear. To a physician also, and to a pilot, it is a shame either for the one to wonder that such and such a one should have an ague, or for the other that the winds should prove contrary. 14. Remember that to change thy mind upon occasion and to follow him that is able to rectify thee is equally ingenious as to find out at the first what is right and just without help. For of thee nothing is required. It is beyond the extent of thine own deliberation and jun, merit and of thine own understanding. 15. If it were thine act and in thine own power, wouldest thou do it? If it were not, whom dost tin accuse? The atoms or the gods? For to do either the part of a mad man. Thou must therefore blame nobody, but if it be in thy power, redress what is amiss. If it be not, To what end is it to complain? For nothing should be done but to some certain end. 16. Whatsoever dieth and falleth, however and wheresoever it die and fall, it cannot fall out of the world. Here it have its abode and change. Here also shall it have its dissolution into its proper elements. The same are the world's elements, and the elements of which thou dost consist. And they, when they are changed, they murmur not. Why shouldest thou? 17. Whatsoever is was made for something, as a horse a vine. Why wonderest thou? The sun itself will say of itself, I was made for something, and so hath every god its proper function. What then were they made for? To disport and delight thyself? See how even common sense and reason cannot brook it. 18. Nature hath its end as well in the end and final consummation of anything that is, as in the beginning and continuation of it. 19. As one that tosseth up a ball, and what is a ball the better, if the motion of it be upwards, or the worse of it be downwards, or if it chance to fall upon the ground? So for the bubble, if it continue, what it the better? And if it dissolve, what is it the worse? And so is it of a candle too. And so must thou reason with thyself both in matter of fame and in matter of death. For as for the body itself, the subject of death, wouldest thou know the vileness of it? Turn it about that thou mayest behold it the worse sides upwards as well, as in its more ordinary pleasant shape. How doth it look when it is old and withered, when sick and pained, when in the act of lust and fornication? And as for fame, this life is short. Both he that praiseth and he that is praised, he that remembers and he that is remembered, will soon be dust and ashes. Besides, it is but in one corner of this part of the world that thou art praised, and yet in this corner thou hast not the joint praises of all men, no, nor scarce of any one constantly. And yet the whole earth itself, what is it but as one point in regard of the whole world? 20. That which must be the subject of thy consideration is either the matter itself, or the dogma, or the operation, or the true sense and signification. 21. Most justly have these things happened unto thee. Why dost not thou amend? Oh, but thou hadst rather become good tomorrow than to be so today. 22. Shall I do it? I will, so the end of my action be to do good unto men. Doth anything by way of cross or adversity happen unto me? I accept it with reference unto the gods and their providence, the fountain of all things, from which whatsoever comes to pass doth hang and depend. 23. By one action judge of the rest. This bathing which usually takes up so much of our time, what is it? Oil, sweat, filth, or the swords of the body? An excrementitious viscosity, the excrements of oil and other ointments used about the body, and mixed with the swords of the body, all base and loathsome. And such almost is every part of our life, and every worldly object. 24. Lucilla buried Verus, then was Lucilla herself buried by others, so Secunda Maximus, then Secunda herself. So Epitincanus, Diotimus, then Epitincanus himself. So Antoninus Pius, Faustina his wife, then Antoninus himself. This is the course of the world. First Sella, Adrianus, then Adrianus himself. And those austere ones, those that foretold other men's deaths, those that were so proud and stately, where are they now? Those austere ones, I mean, such as were Charax and Demetrius the Platonic, and Eudemon, and others like unto those. They were all but for one day, all dead and gone long since. Some of them no sooner dead than forgotten, others soon turned into fables. Of others, even that which was fabulous is now long since forgotten. This thereafter thou must remember, that whatsoever thou art compounded of shall soon be dispersed, and that thy life and breath, or thy soul, shall either be no more, or shall translated, sp, and appointed to some certain place and station. 25. The true joy of a man is to do that which properly belongs unto a man. That which is most proper unto a man is, first, to be kindly affected towards them that are of the same kind and nature, as he is himself, to contemn all sensual motions and appetites, to discern rightly all plausible fancies and imaginations, to contemplate the nature of the universe, both it and things that are done in it, in which kind of contemplation 3 several relations are to be observed. The first to the apparent secondary cause, the second to the first original cause, God, from whom originally proceeds whatsoever doth happen in the world. The third and last to them that we live and converse with, what use may be made of it, to their use and benefit. 26. If pain be an evil, either it is in regard of the body, and that cannot be, because the body of itself is altogether insensible, or in regard of the soul, but it is in the power of the soul to preserve her own peace and tranquillity, and not to suppose that pain is evil. For all judgment and deliberation, all prosecution, or aversion is from within, whither the sense of evil, except it be let in by opinion, cannot penetrate. 27. Wipe off all idle fancies, and say unto thyself incessantly, Now, if I will, it is in my power to keep out of this my soul all wickedness, all lust, and concupiscences, all trouble and confusion. But on the contrary, to behold and consider all things according to their true nature, and to carry myself towards everything according to its true worth. Remember then this thy power that nature hath given thee. 28. Whether thou speak in the Senate, or whether thou speak to any particular, let thy speech in all ways grave and modest. But thou must not openly and vulgarly observe that sound and exact form of speaking, concerning that which is truly good and truly civil, the vanity of the world, and of worldly men, which otherwise truth and reason doth prescribe. 29. Augustus his court, his wife, his daughter, his nephews, his sons-in-law, his sister, Agrippa, his kinsmen, his domestics, his friends, Arius, Maecenas, his slayers of beasts for sacrifice and divination. There thou hast the death of a whole court together. Proceed now on to the rest that have been since that of Augustus. Hath death dwelt with them otherwise, though so many and so stately whilst they lived, than it doth use to deal with any one particular man? Consider now the death of a whole kindred and family, as that of the Pompeys, as that also that useth to be written upon some monuments. He was the last of his own kindred. Oh, what care did his predecessors take that they might leave a successor? Yet behold, at last one or other must of necessity be the last. Here again, therefore, consider the death of a whole kindred. 30. Contract thy whole life to the measure and proportion of one single action, and if in every particular action thou dost perform what is fitting to the utmost of thy power, let it suffice thee. And who can hinder thee but that thou mayest perform what is fitting? But there may be some outward let and impediment. Not any that can hinder thee, but that whatsoever thou dost, thou may do it justly, temperately, and with the praise of God. Yea, but there may be somewhat whereby some operation or other of thine may be hindered. And then with that very thing that doth hinder, thou mayest be well pleased, And so by this gentle and equanimous conversion of thy mind unto that which may be, instead of that which at first thou didst intend, in the room of that former action there succeedeth another, which agrees as well with this contraction of thy life that we now speak of. 31. Receive temporal blessings without ostentation when they are sent, and thou shalt be able to part with them with all readiness and facility when they are taken from thee again. 32. If ever thou sawest either a hand or a foot, or a head lying by itself in some place or other, as cut off from the rest of the body, such must thou conceive him to make himself as much as in him lieth, that either is offended with anything that is happened, whatsoever it be, and as it were divides himself from it, or that commits anything against the natural law of mutual correspondence and society among men, or he that commits any act of uncharitableness. Whosoever thou art such, thou art cast forth, I know not whither, out of the general unity, which is according to nature. Thou wert born indeed apart, but now thou hast cut thyself off. However, herein is matter of joy and exultation, that thou mayest be united again. God hath not granted it unto any other part, that once separated and cut off, it might be reunited and come together again. But behold, that goodness, how great and immense it is, which hath so much esteemed man, as at first he was so made, that he needed not, except he would himself have divided himself from the whole, so once divided and cut off, it hath so provided and ordered it, that if he would himself, he might return and grow together again, and be admitted into its former rank and place of a part, as he was before. 33. As almost all her other faculties and properties the nature of the universe hath imparted unto every reasonable creature, so this in particular we have received from her, that as whatsoever doth oppose itself unto her, and doth withstand her in her purposes and intentions, she doth, though against its will and intention, bring it about to herself, to serve herself of it in the execution of her own destinated ends. And so by this, though not intended cooperation of it with herself, makes it part of herself, whether it will or no. So may every reasonable creature, what crosses and impediments soever it meets with in the course of this mortal life, it may use them as fit and proper objects, to the furtherance of whatsoever it intended and absolutely proposed unto itself as its natural end and happiness. 34. Let not the general representation unto thyself of the wretchedness of this our mortal life trouble thee. Let not thy mind wander up and down, and heap together in her thoughts the many troubles and grievous calamities, which thou art as subject unto as any other. But as everything in particular doth happen, put this question unto thyself, and say, what is it that in this present matter seems unto thee so intolerable? For thou wilt be ashamed to confess it. Then upon this presently call to mind that neither that which is future nor that which is past can hurt thee, but that only which is present. And that also is much lessened if thou dost lightly circumscribe it. And then check thy mind, if for so little a while, a mere instant, it cannot hold out with patience. 35. What? Are either Panthea or Pergamus abiding to this day by their masters' tombs? Or either Chabrias or Diotimus by that of Adrianus? O foolery! For what if they did? Would their masters be sensible of it? Or if sensible, would they be glad of it? Or if glad, were these immortal? Was not it appointed unto them also, both men and women, to become old in time and then to die? And these once dead, what would become of these former? And when all is done, what is all this for, but for a mere bag of blood and corruption? 36. If thou beest quick-sighted, be so in matter of judgment, and best discretion, saith he. 37. In the whole constitution of man, I see not any virtue contrary to justice, whereby it may be resisted and opposed, but one whereby pleasure and voluptuousness may be resisted and opposed. I see. Continence. 38. If thou canst but withdraw conceit and opinion concerning that which may seem hurtful and offensive, thou thyself art as safe may be. Thou thyself? And who is that? Thy reason. Yea, but I am not reason. Well be it so. However, let not thy reason or understanding admit of grief, and if there be anything in thee that is grieved, let that, whatsoever it be, conceive its own grief if it can. 39. That which is a hindrance of the senses is an evil to the sensitive nature. That which is a hindrance of the appetitive and prosecutive faculty is an evil to the sensitive nature. As of the sensitive, so of the vegetative constitution, whatsoever is a hindrance unto it is also in that respect an evil unto the same. And so likewise, whatsoever is a hindrance unto the mind and understanding must needs to be the proper evil of the reasonable nature. Now apply all those things unto thyself. Do either pain or pleasure seize on thee? Let the senses look to that. Hast thou met with some obstacle or other in thy purpose and intention? If thou didst propose without due reservation and exception, now hath thy reasonable part received a blow indeed. But if in general thou didst propose unto thyself whatsoever might be, thou art not hereby either hurt nor properly hindered. For in those things that properly belong unto the mind, she cannot be hindered by any man. It is not fire nor iron, nor the power of a tyrant, nor the power of a slandering tongue, nor anything else that can penetrate into her. 40. If once round and solid, there is no fear that ever it will change. 41. Why should I grieve myself, who never did willingly grieve any other? One thing rejoices one, and another thing another. As for me, this is my joy, if my understanding be right and sound, as neither averse from any man, nor refusing any of those things which as a man I am subject unto, if I can look upon all things in the world meekly and kindly, accept all things and carry myself towards everything according to true worth of the thing itself. 42. This time that is now present bestow thou upon thyself. They that rather hunt for fame after death do not consider that those men that shall be hereafter will be even such as these whom now they can so hardly bear with. And besides, they also will be mortal men. But to consider the thing in itself, if so many with so many voices shall make such and such a sound, or shall have such and such an opinion concerning thee, what is it to thee? 43. Take me and throw me where thou wilt, I am indifferent, for there also I shall have that spirit which is within me propitious, that is well pleased and fully contented, both in that constant disposition and with those particular actions which to its own proper constitution are suitable and agreeable. 44. Is this then a thing of that worth, that for it my soul should suffer and become worse than it was, as either basely dejected, or disordinately affected, or confound within itself, or terrified? What can there be that thou shouldest so much esteem? 45. Nothing can happen unto thee which is not incidental unto thee, as thou art a man. As nothing can happen either to an ox, a vine, or to a stone, which is not incidental unto them, unto every one in his own kind. If therefore nothing can happen unto anything, which is not both usual and natural, why art thou displeased? Sure, the common nature of all would not bring anything upon any that were intolerable. If therefore it be a thing external that causes thy grief, know that it is not that properly that doth cause it, but thine own conceit and opinion concerning the thing, which thou mayest rid thyself of when thou wilt. But if it be somewhat that is amiss in thine own disposition, that doth grieve thee, mayest thou not rectify thy moral tenets and opinions? But if it grieve thee, that thou doest not perform that which seemeth unto thee right and just, why doest not thou choose rather to perform it than to grieve? But somewhat that is stronger than thyself doth hinder thee. Let it not grieve thee then, if it be not thy fault that the thing is not performed. Yea, but it is a thing of that nature, as that thy life is not worth the while, except it may be performed. If it be so, upon condition that thou be kindly and lovingly disposed towards all men, thou mayest be gone. For even then, as much as at any time, art thou in a very good estate of performance, when thou doest die in charity with those that are an obstacle unto thy performance. 46. Remember that thy mind is of that nature as that it becometh altogether unconquerable. When once recollected in herself, she seeks no other content than this, that she cannot be forced. Yea, though it so fall out, that it be even against reason itself, that it cloth bandy. How much less when by the help of reason she is able to judge of things with discretion. And therefore let thy chief fort and place of defence be a mind free from passions, a stronger place, whereunto to make his refuge, and so to become impregnable, and better fortified than this hath no man. He that seeth not this is unlearned. He that seeth it, and betaketh not himself to this place of refuge, is unhappy. 47. Keep thyself to the first bare and naked apprehensions of things, as they present themselves unto thee, and add not unto them. It is reported unto thee that such a one speaketh ill of thee. Well, that he speaketh ill of thee, so much is reported. But that thou art hurt thereby is not reported. That is the addition of opinion, which thou must exclude. I see that my child is sick. That he is sick, I see. But that he is in danger of his life also, I see it not. Thus thou must use to keep thyself to the first motions and apprehensions of things, as they present themselves outwardly, and add not unto them from within thyself through mere conceit and opinion, or rather add unto them, but as one that understandeth the true nature of all things that happen in the world. 48. Is the cucumber bitter? Set it away. Brambles are in the way? Avoid them. Let this suffice. Add not presently speaking unto thyself, what serve these things for in the world? For this, one that is acquainted with the mysteries of nature will laugh at thee for it, as a carpenter would, or a shoemaker, if meeting in either of their shops with some shavings or small remnants of their work, thou shouldest blame them for it. And yet those men, it is not for want of a place where to throw them that they keep them in their shops for a while, but the nature of the universe hath no such outplace. But herein doth consist the wonder of her art and skill, that she having once circumscribed herself within some certain bounds and limits, whatsoever is within her that seems either corrupted or old or unprofitable, she can change it into herself, and of these very things can make new things, so that she needeth not to seek elsewhere out of herself, either for a new supply of matter and substance, or for a place where to throw out whatsoever is irrecoverably putrid and corrupt. Thus she, as for place, so for matter and art, is herself sufficient unto herself. 49. Not to be slack and negligent, or loose and wanton in thy actions, nor contentious and troublesome in thy conversation, nor to rove and wander in thy fancies and imaginations, not basely to contract thy soul, nor boisterously to sally out with it, or furiously to launch out as it were, nor ever to want employment. 50. They kill me, they cut my flesh, they persecute my person with curses. What then? May not thy mind for all this continue pure, prudent, temperate, just, as a fountain of sweet and clear water, though she be cursed by some stander by, yet do her springs nevertheless still run as sweet and clear as before? Yea, though either dirt or dung be thrown in, yet is it no sooner thrown than dispersed, and she cleared. She cannot be denied or infected by it. What then must I do, that I may have within myself an overflowing fountain, and not a well? Beget thyself by continual pains and endeavours to true liberty with charity, and true simplicity and modesty. 51. He that knoweth not what the world is, knoweth not where he himself is. And he that knoweth not what the world was made for, cannot possibly know either what are the qualities or what is the nature of the world. Now he that in either of these is to seek, for what he himself was made is ignorant also. What then dost thou think of that man, who proposeth unto himself as a matter of great moment the noise and applause of men, who both where they are and what they are themselves are altogether ignorant? Dost thou desire to be commended of that man, who thrice in 1 hour, perchance, doth himself curse himself? Dost thou desire to please him, who pleaseth not himself? Or dost thou think that he pleaseth himself, who doth use to repent himself almost of everything that he doth? 52. Not only now, henceforth, to have a common breath, or to hold correspondency of breath, with that air that compasseth us about, but to have a common mind, or to hold correspondency of mind also with that rational substance, which compasseth all things. For that also is of itself and of its own nature, if a man can but draw it in, as he should, everywhere diffused, and passeth through all things, no less than the air doth, if a man can but suck it in. 53. Wickedness in general doth not hurt the world. Particular wickedness doth not hurt any other, only unto him it is hurtful, whosoever he be that offends, unto whom in great favour and mercy it is granted, that whensoever he himself shall but first desire it, he may be presently delivered of it. Unto my free will, my neighbour's free will, whoever he be, as his life or his bode, is altogether indifferent. For though we are all made one for another, yet have our minds and understandings each of them their own proper and limited jurisdiction. For else another man's wickedness might be my evil which God would not have, that it might not be in another man's power to make me unhappy, which nothing now can do but mine own wickedness. 54. The sun seemeth to be shed abroad, and indeed it is diffused, but not effused. For that diffusion of it is a tasis, or an extension. For therefore are the beams of it called actives, from the word ektineste, to be stretched out and extended. Now what a sunbeam is, thou mayest know if thou observe the light of the sun, when through some narrow hole it pierceth into some room that is dark. For it is always in a direct line, and as by any solid body that it meets with in the way that is not penetrable by air, it is divided and abrupted, and yet neither slides off or falls down, but stayeth there nevertheless. Such must the diffusion in the mind be, not an effusion, but an extension. What obstacles and impediments soever she meeteth with in her way, she must not violently, and by way of an impetuous onset light upon them. Neither must she fall down, but she must stand, and give light unto that which doth admit of it. For as for that which doth not, it is its own fault and loss, if it bereave itself of her light. 55. He that feareth death either feareth that he shall have no sense at all, or that his senses will not be the same. Whereas he should rather comfort himself that either no sense at all, and so no sense of evil, or if any sense, then another life, and so no death properly. 56. All men are made one for another, either then teach them better, or bear with them. 57. The motion of the mind is not as the motion of a dart, for the mind, when it is wary and cautelous, and by way of diligent circumspection, turneth herself many ways, may then as well be said to go straight on to the object, as when it useth no such circumspection. 58. To pierce and penetrate into the estate of every one's understanding that thou hast to do with, as also to make the estate of thine own open and penetrable to any other. The 9th Book. 1. He that is unjust is also impious. For the nature of the universe, having made all reasonable creatures one for another, to the end that they should do one another good, more or less according to the several persons and occasions, but in no wise hurt one another, it is manifest that he that doth transgress against this her will is guilty of impiety towards the most ancient and venerable of all the deities. For the nature of the universe is the nature the common parent of all, and therefore piously to be observed of all things that are, and that which now is, to whatsoever first was, and gave it its being, hath relation of blood and kindred. She is also called truth, and is the first cause of all truths. He therefore that willingly and wittingly doth lie, is impious in that he doth receive, and so commit injustice. But he that against his will, in that he disagreeth from the nature of the universe, and in that striving with the nature of the world he doth in his particular, violate the general order of the world. For he doth no better than strive and war against it, who contrary to his own nature applieth himself to that which is contrary to truth. For nature had before furnished him with instincts and opportunities sufficient for the attainment of it, which he, having hitherto neglected, is not now able to discern that which is false from that which is true. He also that pursues after pleasures as that which is truly good, and flies from pains as that which is truly evil, is impious. For such a one must of necessity oftentimes accuse that common nature, as distributing many things both unto the evil and unto the good, not according to the deserts of either, as unto the bad oftentimes pleasures, and the causes of pleasures, so unto the good pains and the occasions of pains. Again, he that feareth pains and crosses in this world, feareth some of those things which sometime or other must needs happen in the world, and that we have already showed to be impious. And he that pursueth after pleasures will not spare to compass his desires, to do that which is unjust, and that is manifestly impious. Now those things which unto nature are equally indifferent, for she had not created both pain and pleasure, if both had not been unto her equally indifferent, they that will live according to nature must in those things, as being of the same mind and disposition that she is, be as equally indifferent. Whosoever therefore in either matter of pleasure and pain, death and life, honour and dishonour, which things nature in the administration of the world indifferently doth make use of, is not as indifferent, it is apparent that he is impious. When I say that common nature doth indifferently make use of them, my meaning is that they happen indifferently in the ordinary course of things, which by a necessary consequence, whether as principal or accessory, come to pass in the world, according to that first and ancient deliberation of Providence, by which she, from some certain beginning, did resolve upon the creation of such a world, conceiving then in her womb, as it were, some certain rational generative seeds and faculties of things future, whether subjects, changes, successions, both such and just so many. 2. It were indeed more happy and comfortable for a man to depart out of this world, having lived all his life long clear from all falsehood, dissimulation, voluptuousness, and pride. But if this cannot be, yet it is some comfort for a man joyfully to depart as weary and out of love with those, rather than to desire to live and to continue long in those wicked courses. Hath not yet experience taught thee to fly from the plague? For a far greater plague is the corruption of the mind than any certain change and distemper of the common air can be. This is a plague of creatures, as they are living creatures, but that of men as they are men or reasonable. 3. Thou must not in matter of death carry thyself scornfully, but as one that is well pleased with it, as being one of those things that nature hath appointed. For what thou dost conceive of these, of a boy to become a young man, to wax old, to grow, to ripen, to get teeth or a beard, or grey hairs to beget, to bear, or to be delivered, or what other action soever it be, that is natural unto man according to the several seasons of his life, such a thing is it also to be dissolved. It is therefore the part of a wise man in matter of death, not in any wise to carry himself either violently or proudly, but patiently to wait for it, as one of nature's operations, that with the same mind as now thou dost expect when that which yet is but an embryo in thy wife's belly shall come forth, thou mayest expect also when thy soul shall fall off from that outward coat or skin, wherein as a child in the belly it lieth involved and shut up. But thou desirest a more popular, and though not so direct and philosophical, yet a very powerful and penetrative recipe against the fear of death. Nothing can make thee more willing to part with thy life than if thou shalt consider both what the subjects themselves are that thou shalt part with, and what manner of disposition thou shalt no more have to do with. True it is that, offended with them, thou must not be by no means, but take care of them, and meekly bear with them. However, this thou mayest remember, that whensoever it happens that thou depart, it shall not be from men that held the same opinions that thou dost. For that indeed, if it were so, is the only thing that might make thee averse from death, and willing to continue here, if it were thy hap to live with men that had obtained the same belief that thou hast. But now what a toil it is for thee to live with men of different opinions, thou seest, so that thou hast rather occasion to say, Hasten, I thee pray, O death, lest I also in time forget myself. 4. He that sinneth, sinneth unto himself. He that is unjust hurts himself, in that he makes himself worse than he was before. Not he only that committeth, but he also that omitteth something, is oftentimes unjust. 5. If my present apprehension of the object be right, and my present action charitable, and this towards whatsoever doth proceed from God, be my present disposition to be well pleased with it, it sufficeth. 6. To wipe away fancy, to use deliberation, to quench concupiscence, to keep the mind free to herself. 7. Of all unreasonable creatures there is but one unreasonable soul, and of all that are reasonable, but one reasonable soul, divided betwixt them all. As of all earthly things there is but one earth, and but one light that we see by, and but one air that we breathe in, as many as either breathe or see. Now whatsoever partakes of some common thing naturally affects and inclines unto that whereof it is part, being of one kind and nature with it. Whatsoever is earthly presseth downwards to the common earth. Whatsoever is liquid would flow together. And whatsoever is airy would be together likewise. So that without some obstacle and some kind of violence, they cannot well be kept asunder. Whatsoever is fiery doth not only by reason of the elementary fire tend upwards, but here also is so ready to join, and to burn together, that whatsoever doth want sufficient moisture to make resistance is easily set on fire. Whatsoever therefore is partaker of that reasonable common nature naturally doth as much and more long after his own kind. For by how much in its own nature it excels all other things, by so much more is it desirous to be joined and united unto that which is of its own nature. As for unreasonable creatures, then, they had not long been, but presently begun among them, swarms and flocks and broods of young ones, and a kind of mutual love and affection. For though but unreasonable, yet a kind of soul these had, and therefore was that natural desire of union more strong and intense in them, as in creatures of a more excellent nature, than either in plants or stones or trees. But among reasonable creatures begun commonwealths, friendships, families, public meetings, and even in their wars, conventions and truces. Now among them that were yet of a more excellent nature, as the stars and planets, though by their nature far distant one from another, yet even among them began some mutual correspondency and unity. So proper is it to excellency in a high degree to effect unity, as that even in things so far distant it could operate unto a mutual sympathy. But now behold what is now come to pass. Those creatures that are reasonable are now the only creatures that have forgotten their natural affection and inclination of one towards another. Among them alone of all other things that are of one kind, there is not to be found a general disposition to flow together. But though they fly from nature, yet are they stopped in their course and apprehended. Do they what they can, nature doth prevail, and so shalt thou confess if thou dost observe it. For sooner mayest thou find a thing earthly, where no earthly thing is, than find a man that naturally can live by himself alone. 8. Man, God, the world, every one in their kind, bear some fruits. All things have their proper time to bear. Though by custom the word itself is in a manner become proper unto the vine and the like, yet is it so nevertheless, as we have said. As for reason, that beareth both common fruit for the use of others, and peculiar which itself doth enjoy. Reason is of a diffusive nature. What itself is in itself, it begets in others, and so doth multiply. 9. Either teach them better, if it be in thy power, or if it be not, remember that for this use, to bear with them patiently, was mildness and goodness granted unto thee. The gods themselves are good unto such, yea, and in some things, as in matter of health, of wealth, of honour, are content offer to further their endeavours, so good and gracious are they. And mightest thou not be so too, or tell me what doth hinder thee? 10. Labour not as one to whom it is appointed to be wretched, nor as one that either would be pitied or admired. But let this be thine only care and desire, so always and in all things to prosecute or to forbear, as the law of charity or mutual society doth require. 11. This day I did come out of all my trouble. Nay, I have cast out all my trouble. It should rather be for that which troubled thee, whatsoever it was not without anywhere that thou shouldest come out of it, but within thine own opinions, from whence it must be cast out, before thou canst truly and constantly be at ease. 12. All those things, for matter of experience, are usual and ordinary, for their continuance but for a day, and for their matter most base and filthy. As they were in the days of those whom we have buried, so are they now also, and no otherwise. 13. The things themselves that affect us, they stand without doors, neither knowing anything themselves, nor able to utter anything unto others concerning themselves. What then is it that passeth verdict on them? The understanding. 14. As virtue and wickedness consist not in passion but in action, so neither doth the true good or evil of a reasonable charitable man consist in passion, but in operation and action. 15. To the stone that is cast up, when it comes down, it is no hurt unto it, as neither benefit when it doth ascend. 16. Sift their minds and understandings, and behold what men they be, whom thou dost stand in fear of what they shall judge of thee, what they themselves judge of themselves. 17. All things that are in the world are always in the estate of alteration. Thou also art in a perpetual change, yea, and under corruption too in some part, and so is the whole world. 18. It is not thine, but another man's sin. Why should it trouble thee? Let him look to it, whose sin it is. 19. Of an operation and of a purpose there is an ending, or of an action and of a purpose we say commonly, that it is at an end. From opinion also there is an absolute cessation, which is as it were the death of it. In all this there is no hurt. Apply this now to a man's age, as first a child, then a youth, then a young man, then an old man. Every change from one age to another is a kind of death. And all this while here no matter of grief yet. Pass now unto that life first, that which thou livest under thy grandfather, then under thy mother, then under thy father. And thus when through the whole course of thy life hitherto thou hast found and observed many alterations, many changes, many kinds of endings and cessations, put this question to thyself: what matter of grief or sorrow dost thou find in any of these? Or what doest thou suffer through any of these? If in none of these, then neither in the ending and consummation of thy whole life, which is also but a cessation and a change. 20. As occasion shall require, either to thine own understanding, or to that of the universe, or to his, whom thou hast now to do with, let thy refuge be with all speed. To thine own, that it resolve upon nothing against justice. To that of the universe, that thou mayest remember, part of whom thou art. Of his, that thou mayest consider whether in the estate of ignorance or of knowledge. And then also must thou call to mind that he is thy kinsman. 21. As thou thyself, whoever thou art, were made for the perfection and consummation, being a member of it, of a common society, so must every action of thine tend to the perfection and consummation of a life that is truly sociable. What action soever of thine, therefore, that either immediately or afar off hath not reference to the common good, that is an exorbitant and disorderly action, yea, it is seditious, as one among the people, who from such and such a consent and unity should factiously divide and separate himself. 22. Children's anger, mere babels, wretched souls bearing up dead bodies, that they may not have their fall so soon, even as it is in that common dirge song. 23. Go to the quality of the cause from which the effect doth proceed. Behold it by itself bare and naked, separated from all that is material. Then consider the utmost bounds of time that that cause, thus and thus qualified, can subsist and abide. 24. Infinite are the troubles and miseries that thou hast already been put to, by reason of this only, because that for all happiness it did not suffice thee, or that thou didst not account it sufficient happiness, that thy understanding did operate according to its natural constitution. 25. When any shall either impeach thee with false accusations, or hatefully reproach thee, or shall use any such carriage towards thee, get thee presently to their minds and understandings, and look in them, and behold what manner of men they be. Thou shalt see that there is no such occasion why it should trouble thee. What such as they are think of thee. Yet must thou love them still, for by nature they are thy friends, and the gods themselves, in those things that they seek from them as matters of great moment, are well content, all manner of ways, as by dreams and oracles, to help them as well as others. 26. Up and down, from one age to another, go the ordinary things of the world, being still the same, and either of everything in particular before it come to pass, the mind of the universe doth consider with itself and deliberate. And if so, then submit for shame unto the determination of such an excellent understanding, or once for all it did resolve upon all things in general, and since that whatsoever happens, happens by a necessary consequence, and all things indivisibly in a manner and inseparably hold one of another. In sum, either there is a God, and then all is well, or if all things go by chance and fortune, yet mayest thou use thine own providence in those things that concern thee properly, and then art thou well. 27. Within a while the earth shall cover us all, and then she herself shall have her change. And then the course will be from one period of eternity unto another, and so a perpetual eternity. Now can any man that shall consider with himself in his mind the several rollings or successions of so many changes and alterations, and the swiftness of all these rulings, can he otherwise but contemn in his heart and despise all worldly things? The cause of the universe is, as it were, a strong torrent. It carrieth all away. 28. And these, your professed politicians, the only true practical philosophers of the world, as they think of themselves, so full of affected gravity, or such professed lovers of virtue and honesty, what wretches be they in very deed, how vile and contemptible in themselves! O man, what ado dost thou keep? Do what thy nature doth now require, resolve upon it, if thou mayest, and take no thought whether anybody shall know it or no. Yea, but sayest thou, I must not expect a Plato's commonwealth. If they profit, though never so little, I must be content, and think much even of that little progress. Doth any of them forsake their former false opinions, that I should think they profit? For without a change of opinions, alas, what is all that ostentation but mere wretchedness of slavish minds, that groan privately, and yet would make a show of obedience to reason and truth? Go to now and tell me of Alexander and Philippus, and Demetrius Phalereus, whether they understood what the common nature requireth, and could rule themselves or no, they know best themselves. But if they kept a life and swaggered, I, God be thanked, am not bound to imitate them. The effect of true philosophy is unaffected simplicity and modesty. Persuade me not to ostentation and vainglory. 29. From some high place, as it were, to look down, and to behold here flocks, and there sacrifices without number, and all kind of navigation, some in a rough and stormy sea, and some in a calm. The general differences, or different estates of things, some that are now first upon being, the several and mutual relations of those things that are together, and some other things that are at their last. Their lives also, who were long ago, and theirs who shall be hereafter, and the present estate and life of those many nations of barbarians that are now in the world, thou must likewise consider in thy mind. And how many there be who never so much as heard of thy name, how many that will soon forget it, how many who but even now did commend thee, within a very little while perchance will speak ill of thee, so that neither fame nor honour nor anything else that this world doth afford is worth the while. The sum then of all whatsoever doth happen unto thee, whereof God is the cause, to accept it contentedly, whatsoever thou doest, whereof thou thyself art the cause, to do it justly, which will be if both in thy resolution and in thy action thou have no further end than to do good unto others, as being that which by thy natural constitution as a man thou art bound unto. 30. Many of those things that trouble and straiten thee, it is in thy power to cut off, as wholly depending from mere conceit and opinion, and then thou shalt have room enough. 31. To comprehend the whole world together in thy mind, and the whole course of this present age to represent it unto thyself, and to fix thy thoughts upon the sudden change of every particular object. How short the time is from the generation of anything unto the dissolution of the same, but how immense and infinite both that which was before the generation and that which after the generation of it shall be. All things that thou seest will soon be perished, and they that see their corruptions will soon vanish away themselves. He that dieth 100 years old, and he that dieth young, shall come all to one. 32. What are their minds and understandings, and what the things that they apply themselves unto? What do they love, and what do they hate for? Fancy to thyself the estate of their souls openly to be seen, when they think they hurt them shrewdly, whom they speak ill of, and when they think they do them a very good turn, whom they commend and extol. Oh, how full are they then of conceit and opinion! 33. Loss and corruption is in very deed nothing else but change and alteration, and that is it, which the nature of the universe doth most delight in, by which and according to which whatsoever is done is well done. For that was the estate of worldly things from the beginning, and so shall it ever be. Or wouldest thou rather say that all things in the world have gone ill from the beginning for so many ages, and shall ever go ill? And then among so many deities, could no divine power be found all this while that could rectify the things of the world? Or is the world, to incessant woes and miseries, for ever condemned? 34. How base and putrid every common matter is! Water, dust, and from the mixture of these bones and all that loathsome stuff that our bodies do consist of, so subject to be infected and corrupted. And again those other things that are so much prized and admired, as marble stones, what are they, but as it were the kernels of the earth? Gold and silver, what are they, but as the more gross feces of the earth? Thy most royal apparel, for matter, it is but as it were the hair of a silly sheep, and for colour the very blood of a shellfish. Of this nature are all other things. Thy life itself is some such thing too, a mere exhalation of blood, and it also apt to be changed into some other common thing. 35. Will this querulousness, this murmuring, this complaining and dissembling never be at an end? What then is it that troubleth thee? Doth any new thing happen unto thee? What doest thou so wonder at the cause or the matter? Behold, either by itself is either of that weight and moment indeed, and besides these there is not anything. But thy duty towards the gods also, it is time thou shouldst acquit thyself of it with more goodness and simplicity. 36. It is all one to see these things for 100 of years together, or but for 3 years. 37. If he have sinned, his is the harm, not mine, but perchance he hath not. 38. Either all things by the providence of reason happen unto every particular as a part of one general body, and then it is against reason that a part should complain of anything that happens for the good of the whole. Or if, according to Epicurus, atoms be the cause of all things, and that life be nothing else but an accidentary confusion of things, and death nothing else but a mere dispersion, and so of all other things, what doest thou trouble thyself for? 39. Sayest thou unto that rational part, Thou art dead, corruption hath taken hold on thee? Doth it then also void excrements? Doth it, like either oxen or sheep, graze or feed, that it also should be mortal as well as the body? 40. Either the gods can do nothing for us at all, or they can still and allay all the distractions and distempers of thy mind. If they can do nothing, why dost thou pray? If they can, why wouldst not thou rather pray that they will grant unto thee that thou mayest neither fear nor lust after any of those worldly things which cause these distractions and distempers of it? Why not rather that thou mayest not at either their absence or presence be grieved and discontented, than either that thou mayest obtain them, or that thou mayest avoid them? For certainly it must needs be that if the gods can help us in anything, they may in this kind also. But thou wilt say perchance, In those things the gods have given me my liberty, and it is in mine own power to do what I will. But if thou mayest use this liberty, rather to set thy mind at true liberty, than wilfully with baseness and servility of mind to affect those things, which either to compass or to avoid is not in thy power, wert thou not better? And as for the gods, who hath told thee that they may not help us up even in those things that they have put in our own power, whether it be so or no, thou shalt soon perceive, if thou wilt but try thyself and pray. One prayeth that he may compass his desire, to lie with such or such a one, pray thou that thou mayest not lust to lie with her. Another how he may be rid of such a one, pray thou that thou mayest so patiently bear with him, as that thou have no such need to be rid of him. Another that he may not lose his child, pray thou that thou mayest not fear to lose him. To this end and purpose, let all thy prayer be, and see what will be the event. 41. In my sickness, saith Epicurus of himself, my discourses were not concerning the nature of my disease, neither was that to them that came to visit me the subject of my talk, but in the consideration and contemplation of that which was of especial weight and moment was all my time bestowed and spent, and among others in this very thing, how my mind by a natural and unavoidable sympathy, partaking in some sort with the present indisposition of my body, might nevertheless keep herself free from trouble, and in present possession of her own proper happiness. Neither did I leave the ordering of my body to the physicians altogether to do with me what they would, as though I expected any great matter from them, or as though I thought it a matter of such great consequence, by their means to recover my health. For my present estate, methought, liked me very well, and gave me good content. Whether therefore in sickness, if thou chanced to sicken, or in what other kind of extremity soever, endeavour thou also to be in thy mind so affected, as he doth report of himself, not to depart from thy philosophy for anything that can befall thee, nor to give ear to the discourses of silly people and mere naturalists. 42. It is common to all trades and professions to mind and intend that only which now they are about, and the instrument whereby they work. 43. When at any time thou art offended with any one's impudency, put presently this question to thyself: What? Is it then possible that there should not be any impudent men in the world? Certainly it is not possible. Desire not then that which is impossible. For this one thou must think, whosoever he be, is one of those impudent ones, that the world cannot be without. So of the subtle and crafty, so of the perfidious, so of every one that offendeth, must thou ever be ready to reason with thyself. For whilst in general thou dost thus reason with thyself, that the kind of them must needs be in the world, thou wilt be the better able to use meekness towards every particular. This also thou shalt find of very good use upon every such occasion, presently to consider with thyself what proper virtue nature hath furnished man with, against such a vice, or to encounter with a disposition vicious in this kind. As for example against the unthankful, it hath given goodness and meekness as an antidote, and so against another, vicious in another kind, some other peculiar faculty. And generally is it not in thy power to instruct him better, that is in an error? For whosoever sinneth doth in that decline from his purposed end, and is certainly deceived. And again, what art thou the worse for his sin? For thou shalt not find that any one of these against whom thou art incensed hath in very deed done anything whereby thy mind, the only true subject of thy hurt and evil, can be made worse than it was. And what a matter of either grief or wonder is this, if he that is unlearned do the deeds of one that is unlearned? Should not thou rather blame thyself, who, when upon very good grounds of reason, thou mightst have thought it very probable that such a thing would by such a one be committed, didst not only not foresee it, but moreover dost wonder at it, that such a thing should be? But then especially, when thou dost find fault with either an unthankful or a false man, must thou reflect upon thyself. For without all question thou thyself art much in fault, if either of one that were of such a disposition thou didst expect that he should be true unto thee, or when unto any thou didst a good turn, thou didst not there bound thy thoughts as one that had obtained his end, nor didst not think that from the action itself thou hadst received a full reward of the good that thou hadst done. For what wouldst thou have more? Unto him that is a man thou hast done a good turn. Doth not that suffice thee? What thy nature required, that hast thou done. Must thou be rewarded for it? As if either the eye for that it seeth, or the feet that they go, should require satisfaction. For as these, being by nature appointed for such a use, can challenge no more than that they may work according to their natural constitution, so man, being born to do good unto others whensoever he doth a real good unto any by helping them out of error, or though but in middle things, as in matter of wealth, life, preferment, and the like, doth help to further their desires, he doth that for which he was made, and therefore can require no more. The 10th Book. 1. O my soul, the time I trust will be when thou shalt be good, simple, single, more open and visible than that body by which it is enclosed. Thou wilt one day be sensible of their happiness whose end is love, and their affections dead to all worldly things. Thou shalt one day be full, and in want of no external thing, not seeking pleasure from anything, either living or insensible, that this world can afford, neither wanting time for the continuation of thy pleasure, nor place and opportunity, nor the favour either of the weather or of men. When thou shalt have content in thy present estate, and all things present shall add to thy content, when thou shalt persuade thyself that thou hast all things, all for thy good, and all by the providence of the gods, and of things future also, shall be as confident that all will do well, as tending to the maintenance and preservation in some sort of his perfect welfare and happiness, who is perfection of life, of goodness and beauty, who begets all things, and containeth all things in himself, and in himself doth recollect all things from all places that are dissolved, that of them he may beget others again like unto them. Such one day shall be thy disposition, that thou shalt be able, both in regard of the gods and in regard of men, so to fit and order thy conversation, as neither to complain of them at any time for anything that they do, nor to do anything thyself for which thou mayest justly be condemned. 2. As one who is altogether governed by nature, let it be thy care to observe what it is that thy nature in general doth require. That done, if thou find not that thy nature, as thou art a living sensible creature, will be the worse for it, thou mayest proceed. Next then thou must examine what thy nature as thou art a living sensible creature doth require, and that, whatsoever it be, thou mayest admit of and do it, if thy nature as thou art a reasonable living creature will not be the worse for it. Now whatsoever is reasonable is also sociable. Keep thyself to these rules, and trouble not thyself about idle things. 3. Whatsoever doth happen unto thee, thou art naturally by thy natural constitution either able or not able to bear. If thou beest able, be not offended, but bear it according to thy natural constitution, or as nature hath enabled thee. If thou beest not able, be not offended, for it will soon make an end of thee, and itself, whatsoever it be, at the same time end with thee. But remember that whatsoever by the strength of opinion, grounded upon a certain apprehension of both true profit and duty, thou canst conceive tolerable, that thou art able to bear that by thy natural constitution. 4. Him that offends, to teach with love and meekness, and to show him his error. But if thou canst not, then to blame thyself, or rather not thyself neither, if thy will and endeavours have not been wanting. 5. Whatsoever it be that happens unto thee, it is that which from all time was appointed unto thee. For by the same coherence of causes by which thy substance from all eternity was appointed to be, was also whatsoever should happen unto it, destinated and appointed. 6. Either with Epicurus, we must fondly imagine the atoms to be the cause of all things, or we must needs grant a nature. Let this then be thy first ground, that thou art part of that universe which is governed by nature. Then secondly, that to those parts that are of the same kind and nature as thou art, thou hast relation of kindred. For of these, if I shall always be mindful, first as I am a part, I shall never be displeased with anything that falls to my particular share of the common chances of the world. For nothing that is behoveful unto the whole can be truly hurtful to that which is part of it. For this being the common privilege of all natures, that they contain nothing in themselves that is hurtful unto them, it cannot be that the nature of the universe, whose privilege beyond other particular natures is, that she cannot against her will by any higher external cause be constrained, should beget anything and cherish it in her bosom that should tend to her own hurt and prejudice. As then I bear in mind that I am a part of such a universe, I shall not be displeased with anything that happens. And as I have relation of kindred to those parts that are of the same kind and nature that I am, so I shall be careful to do nothing that is prejudicial to the community, but in all my deliberations shall they that are of my kind ever be, and the common good, that which all my intentions and resolutions shall drive unto, as that which is contrary unto it, I shall by all means endeavour to prevent and avoid. These things once so fixed and concluded, as thou wouldst think him a happy citizen, whose constant study and practice were for the good and benefit of his fellow citizens, and the carriage of the city such towards him, that he were well pleased with it, so must it needs be with thee, that thou shalt live a happy life. 7. All parts of the world, all things I mean that are contained within the whole world, must of necessity at some time or other come to corruption. Alteration, I should say, to speak truly and properly, but that I may be the better understood, I am content at this time to use that more common word. Now say I, if so be that this be both hurtful unto them and yet unavoidable, would not, thinkest thou, the whole world itself be in a sweet case, all the parts of it being subject to alteration, yea, and by their making itself fitted for corruption, as consisting of things different and contrary. And did nature then either of herself thus project and purpose the affliction and misery of her parts, and therefore of purpose so made them, not only that haply they might, but of necessity that they should fall into evil? Or did not she know what she did when she made them? For of either of these two to say is equally absurd. But to let pass nature in general, and to reason of things particular, according to their own particular natures, how absurd and ridiculous is it, first to say that all parts of the whole are, by their proper natural constitution, subject to alteration, and then when any such thing doth happen, as when one doth fall sick and dieth, to take on and wonder as though some strange thing had happened. Though this besides might move not so grievously to take on when any such thing doth happen, that whatsoever is dissolved, it is dissolved into those things whereof it was compounded. For every dissolution is either a mere dispersion of the elements into those elements again whereof everything did consist, or a change of that which is more solid into earth, and of that which is pure and subtle or spiritual into air. So that by this means nothing is lost, but all resumed again into those rational generative seeds of the universe, and this universe, either after a certain period of time to lie consumed by fire, or by continual changes to be renewed, and so forever to endure. Now that solid and spiritual that we speak of, thou must not conceive it to be that very same which at first was when thou wert born. For alas, all this that now thou art in either kind, either for matter of substance or of life, hath but 2 or 3 days ago, partly from meats eaten, and partly from air breathed in, received all its influx, being the same then in no other respect than a running river, maintained by the perpetual influx and new supply of waters, is the same. That therefore which thou hast since received, not that which came from thy mother, is that which comes to change and corruption. But suppose that for the general substance, and more solid part of it, should still cleave unto thee never so close, yet what is that to the proper qualities and affections of it, by which persons are distinguished, which certainly are quite different? 8. Now that thou hast taken these names upon thee of good, modest, true, of emphron, symphron, ipophron, take heed lest at any times by doing anything that is contrary, thou be but improperly so called, and lose thy right to these appellations. Or if thou do, return unto them again with all possible speed. And remember that the word emphron notes unto thee an intent and intelligent consideration of every object that presents itself unto thee without distraction, and the word symphron a ready and contented acceptation of whatsoever by the appointment of the common nature happens unto thee, and the word ipophron a superextension or a transcendent and outreaching disposition of thy mind, whereby it passeth by all bodily pains and pleasures, honour and credit, death, and whatsoever is of the same nature, as matters of absolute indifferency, and in no wise to be stood upon by a wise man. These then, if inviolably thou shalt observe, and shalt not be ambitious to be so called by others, both thou thyself shalt become a new man, and thou shalt begin a new life. For to continue such as hitherto thou hast been, to undergo those distractions and distempers as thou must needs for such a life as hitherto thou hast lived, is the part of one that is very foolish, and is over fond of his life, whom a man might compare to one of those half-eaten wretches, matched in the amphitheatre with wild beasts, who, as full as they are all the body over with wounds and blood, desire for a great favour, that they may be reserved till the next day, then also, and in the same estate, to be exposed to the same nails and teeth as before. Away, therefore, ship thyself, and from the troubles and distractions of thy former life, convey thyself, as it were, unto these few names. And if thou canst abide in them, or be constant in the practice and possession of them, continue there as glad and joyful as one that were translated unto some such place of bliss and happiness as that which by Hesiod and Plato is called the Islands of the Blessed, by others called the Elysian Fields. And whensoever thou findest thyself that thou art in danger of a relapse, and that thou art not able to master and overcome those difficulties and temptations that present themselves in thy present station, get thee into any private corner where thou mayest be better able. Or if that will not serve, forsake even thy life rather, but so that it be not in passion, but in a plain, voluntary, modest way, this being the only commendable action of thy whole life, that thus thou art departed, or this having been the main work and business of thy whole life, that thou mightest thus depart. Now for the better remembrance of those names that we have spoken of, thou shalt find it a very good help, to remember the gods as often as may be, and that the thing which they require at our hands of as many of us as are by nature reasonable creation is not that with fair words and outward show of piety and devotion we should flatter them, but that we should become like unto them, and that, as all other natural creatures, the fig tree, for example, the dog, the bee, both do, all of them, and apply themselves unto that which by their natural constitution is proper unto them, so man likewise should do that which by his nature, as he is a man, belongs unto him. 9. Toys and fooleries at home, wars abroad, sometimes terror, sometimes torpor, or stupid sloth, this is thy daily slavery. By little and little, if thou doest not better look to it, those sacred dogmata will be blotted out of thy mind. How many things be there, which, when as a mere naturalist thou hast barely considered of according to their nature, thou doest let pass without any further use? Whereas thou shouldst in all things so join action and contemplation, that thou mightest both at the same time attend all present occasions, to perform everything duly and carefully, and yet so intend the contemplative part too, that no part of that delight and pleasure, which the contemplative knowledge of everything according to its true nature doth of itself afford, might be lost. Or that the true and contemplative knowledge of everything according to its own nature might of itself, action being subject to many lets and impediments, afford unto thee sufficient pleasure and happiness, not apparent indeed, but not concealed. And when shalt thou attain to the happiness of true simplicity and unaffected gravity? When shalt thou rejoice in the certain knowledge of every particular object according to its true nature, as what the matter and substance of it is, what use it is for in the world, how long it can subsist, what things it doth consist of, who they be that are capable of it, and who they that can give it and take it away? 10. As the spider, when it hath caught the fly that it hunted after, is not little proud, nor meanly conceited of herself, as he likewise that hath caught a hare, or hath taken a fish with his net, as another for the taking of a boar, and another of a bear, so may they be proud and applaud themselves for their valiant acts against the Sarmatai, or northern nations lately defeated. For these also, these famous soldiers and warlike men, if thou dost look into their minds and opinions, what did they for the most part but hunt after prey? 11. To find out and set to thyself some certain way and method of contemplation, whereby thou mayest clearly discern and represent unto thyself the mutual change of all things, the one into the other. Bear it in thy mind evermore, and see that thou be thoroughly well exercised in this particular. For there is not anything more effectual to beget true magnanimity. 12. He hath got loose from the bonds of his body, and perceiving that within a very little while he must of necessity bid the world farewell, and leave all these things behind him, he wholly applied himself as to righteousness in all his actions, so to the common nature in all things that should happen unto him. And contenting himself with these two things, to do all things justly, and whatsoever God doth send to like well of it, what others shall either say or think of him, or shall do against him, he doth not so much as trouble his thoughts with it. To go on straight, whither right and reason directed him, and by so doing to follow God, was the only thing that he did mind, that his only business and occupation. 13. What use is there of suspicion at all? Or why should thoughts of mistrust and suspicion concerning that which is future trouble thy mind at all? What now is to be done, if thou mayest search and inquiry into that, what needs thou care for more? And if thou art well able to perceive it alone, let no man divert thee from it. But if alone thou doest not so well perceive it, suspend thine action, and take advice from the best. And if there be anything else that doth hinder thee, go on with prudence and discretion, according to the present occasion and opportunity, still proposing that unto thyself which thou doest conceive most right and just. For to hit that aright, and to speed in the prosecution of it, must needs be happiness, since it is that only which we can truly and properly be said to miss of or miscarry in. 14. What is that is slow and yet quick, merry and yet grave? He that in all things doth follow reason for his guide. 15. In the morning, as soon as thou art awaked, when thy judgment before either thy affections or external objects have wrought upon it is yet most free and impartial, put this question to thyself, whether if that which is right and just be done, the doing of it by thyself, or by others when thou art not able thyself, be a thing material or no. For sure it is not, and as for these that keep such a life, and stand so much upon the praises or dispraises of other men, hast thou forgotten what manner of men they be, that such and such upon their beds, and such at their board, what their ordinary actions are, what they pursue after, and what they fly from? What thefts and rapines they commit, if not with their hands and feet, yet with that more precious part of theirs, their minds, which, would it but admit of them, might enjoy faith, modesty, truth, justice, a good spirit. 16. Give what thou wilt, and take away what thou wilt, saith he that is well taught and truly modest, to him that gives and takes away. And it is not out of a stout and peremptory resolution that he saith it, but in mere love and humble submission. 17. So live as indifferent to the world and all worldly objects as one who liveth by himself alone upon some desert hill. For whether here or there, if the whole world be but as one town, it matters not much for the place. Let them behold and see a man that is a man indeed, living according to the true nature of man. If they cannot bear with me, let them kill me, for better were it to die than so to live as they would have thee. 18. Make it not any longer a matter of dispute or discourse, what are the signs and properties of a good man, but really and actually to be such. 19. Ever to represent unto thyself, and to set before thee both the general age and time of the world, and the whole substance of it, and how all things particular in respect of these are for their substance, as one of the least seeds that is, and for their duration, as the turning of the pestle in the mortar once about. Then to fix thy mind upon every particular object of the world, and to conceive it, as it is indeed, as already being in the state of dissolution and of change, tending to some kind of either putrefaction or dispersion, or whatsoever else it is, that is the death, as it were, of everything in his own kind. 20. Consider them through all actions and occupations of their lives, as when they eat and when they sleep, when they are in the act of necessary exoneration, and when in the act of lust. Again, when they either are in their greatest exaltation, and in the middle of all their pomp and glory, or being angry and displeased, in great state and majesty, as from a higher place they chide and rebuke. How base and slavish, but a little while ago, they were fain to be, that they might come to this, and within a very little while, what will be their estate, when death hath once seized upon them. 21. That is best for every one, that the common nature of all doth send unto every one, and then is it best when she doth send it. 22. The earth, saith the poet, doth often long after the rain. So is the glorious sky often as desirous to fall upon the earth, which argues a mutual kind of love between them. And so, say I, doth the world bear a certain affection of love to whatsoever shall come to pass. With thine affections shall mine concur, O world. The same and no other shall the object of my longing be which is of thine. Now that the world doth love, it is true indeed, so is it as commonly said, and acknowledged, when according to the Greek phrase, imitated by the Latins, of things that used to be, we say commonly that they love to be. 23. Either thou dost continue in this kind of life, and that is it, which so long thou hast been used unto, and therefore tolerable, or thou doest retire, or leave the world, and that of thine own accord, and then thou hast thy mind, or thy life is cut off, and then mayest thou rejoice that thou hast ended thy charge. One of these must needs be therefore of good comfort. 24. Let it always appear and be manifest unto thee that solitariness and desert places, by many philosophers so much esteemed of and affected, are of themselves, but thus and thus, and that all things are them to them that live in towns and converse with others as they are the same nature, everywhere to be seen and observed. To them that have retired themselves to the top of the mountains, and to desert havens, or what other desert and inhabited places soever. For anywhere it thou wilt mayest thou quickly find, and apply that to thyself, which Plato saith of his philosopher, in a place as private and retired, saith he, as if he were shut up and enclosed about in some shepherd's lodge on top of a hill. Thereby thyself to put these questions to thyself, or to enter in these considerations. What is my chief and principal part, which hath power over the rest? What is now the present estate of it, as I use it, and what is it that I employ it about? Is it now void of reason, or no? Is it free and separated, or so affixed, so congealed and grown together as it were with the flesh, that it is swayed by the motions and inclinations of it? 25. He that runs away from his master is a fugitive, but the law is every man's master. He therefore that forsakes the law is a fugitive. So is he, whosoever he be, that is either sorry, angry, or afraid, or for anything that either hath been, is, or shall be by his appointment, who is the Lord and Governor of the universe. For he truly and properly is nomos, or the law, as the only naemon, or distributor and dispenser of all things that happen unto any one in his lifetime. Whatsoever then is either sorry, angry, or afraid, is a fugitive. 26. From man is the seed that once cast into the womb, man hath no more to do with it. Another cause succeedeth and undertakes the work, and in time brings a child, that wonderful effect from such a beginning, to perfection. Again man lets food down through his throat, and that once down he hath no more to do with it. Another cause succeedeth and distributeth this food into the senses, and the affections into life and into strength, and doth with it those other many and marvellous things that belong unto man. These things, therefore, that are so secretly and invisibly wrought and brought to pass, thou must use to behold and contemplate, and not the things themselves only, but the power also by which they are effected, that thou mayest behold it, though not with the eyes of the body, yet as plainly and visibly as thou canst see and discern the outward efficient cause of the depression and elevation of anything. 27. Ever to mind and consider with thyself how all things that now are have been heretofore much after the same sort, and after the same fashion that now they are, and so to think of those things which shall be hereafter also. Moreover, whole dramata and uniform scenes, or scenes that comprehend the lives and actions of men of one calling and profession, as many as either in thine own experience thou hast known, or by reading of ancient histories, as the whole court of Adrianus, the whole court of Antoninus Pius, the whole court of Philippus, that of Alexander, that of Croesus, to set them all before thine eyes, for thou shalt find that they are all but after one sort and fashion, only that the actors were others. 28. As a pig that cries and flings when his throat is cut, fancy to thyself every one to be, that grieves for any worldly thing and takes on. Such a one is he also, who upon his bed alone doth bewail the miseries of this our mortal life. And remember this, that unto reasonable creatures only it is granted that they may willingly and freely submit unto providence, but absolutely to submit is a necessity imposed upon all creatures equally. 29. Whatsoever it is that thou goest about, consider of it by thyself, and ask thyself, what, because I shall do this no more when I am dead, should therefore death seem grievous unto me? 30. When thou art offended with any man's transgression, presently reflect upon thyself, and consider what thou thyself art guilty of in the same kind, as that thou also perchance dost think it a happiness either to be rich, or to live in pleasure, or to be praised and commended, and so of the rest in particular. For this, if thou shalt call to mind, thou shalt soon forget thine anger, especially when at the same time this also shall concur in thy thoughts, that he was constrained by his error and ignorance so to do. For how can he choose as long as he is of that opinion? Do thou therefore, if thou canst, take away that from him that forceth him to do as he doth. 31. When thou seest Satiro, think of Socraticus and Utikesh, or Hymen, and when Euphrates, think of Uticio and Silvanus, when Alciphron, of Tropaeoporus, when Xenophon, of Crito or Severus. And when thou doest look upon thyself, fancy unto thyself some one or other of the Caesars, and so for every one, some one or other that hath been for estate and profession answerable unto him. Then let this come to thy mind at the same time, and where now are they all? Nowhere or anywhere? For so shalt thou at all time be able to perceive how all worldly things are but as the smoke that vanisheth away, or indeed mere nothing. Especially when thou shalt call to mind this also, that whatsoever is once changed shall never be again as long as the world endureth. And thou then, how long shalt thou endure? And why doth it not suffice thee, if virtuously, and as becometh thee, thou mayest pass that portion of time, how little soever it be, that is allotted unto thee? 32. What a subject and what a course of life is it that thou doest so much desire to be rid of? For all these things, what are they but fit objects for an understanding, that beholdeth everything according to its true nature, to exercise itself upon? Be patient, therefore, until that, as a strong stomach that turns all things into his own nature, and as a great fire that turneth in flame and light, whatsoever thou doest cast into it, thou have made these things also familiar, and as it were natural unto thee. 33. Let it not be in any man's power to say truly of thee that thou art not truly simple or sincere and open, or not good. Let him be deceived, whosoever he be, that shall have any such opinion of thee. For all this doth depend of thee. For who is it that should hinder thee from being either truly simple or good? Do thou only resolve rather not to live than not to be such. For indeed neither doth it stand with reason that he should live that is not such. What then is it that may upon this present occasion, according to best reason and discretion, either be said or done? For whatsoever it be, it is in thy power either to do it or to say it, and therefore seek not any pretences, as though thou wert hindered. Thou wilt never cease groaning and complaining, until such time as that what pleasure is unto the voluptuous be unto thee, to do in everything that presents itself, whatsoever may be done comfortably and agreeably to the proper constitution of man, or to man as he is a man. For thou must account that pleasure, whatsoever it be, that thou mayest do according to thine own nature. And to do this every place will fit thee. Unto the cylindrous or roller it is not granted to move everywhere according to its own proper motion, as neither unto the water nor unto the fire, nor unto any other thing that either is merely natural or natural and sensitive, but not rational, for many things there be that can hinder their operations. But of the mind and understanding this is the proper privilege, that according to its own nature, and as it will itself, it can pass through every obstacle that it finds, and keep straight on forwards. Setting therefore before thine eyes this happiness and felicity of thy mind, whereby it is able to pass through all things, and is capable of all motions, whether as the fire upwards, or as the stone downwards, or as the cylindrous through that which is sloping, content thyself with it, and seek not after any other thing. For all other kind of hindrances that are not hindrances of thy mind, either they are proper to the body, or merely proceed from the opinion, reason not making that resistance that it should, but basely and cowardly suffering itself to be foiled, and of themselves can neither wound nor do any hurt at all. Else must he of necessity, whosoever he be that meets with any of them, become worse than he was before. For so is it in all other subjects, that is thought hurtful unto them, whereby they are made worse. But here contrariwise, man, if he make that good use of them that he should, is rather the better and the more praiseworthy for any of those kind of hindrances than otherwise. But generally remember that nothing can hurt a natural citizen that is not hurtful unto the city itself, nor anything hurt the city that is not hurtful unto the law itself. But none of these casualties or external hindrances do hurt the law itself, or are contrary to that course of justice and equity by which public societies are maintained. Neither therefore do they hurt either city or citizen. 34. As he that is bitten by a mad dog is afraid of everything almost that he seeth, so unto him whom the dogmata have once bitten, or in whom true knowledge hath made an impression, everything almost that he sees or reads, be it never so short or ordinary, doth afford a good memento, to pull him out of all grief and fear, as that of the poet, the winds blow upon the trees, and their leaves fall upon the ground. Then do the trees begin to bud again, and by the springtime they put forth new branches. So is the generation of men, some come into the world and others go out of it. Of these leaves then thy children are, and they also that applaud thee so gravely, or that applaud thy speeches with that their usual acclamation, Axiopistos, O wisely spoken, I, and speak well of thee, as on the other side, they that stick not to curse thee, they that privately and secretly dispraise and deride thee, they also are but leaves. And they also that shall follow, in whose memories the names of men famous after death is preserved, they are but leaves neither. For even so is it of all these worldly things. Their spring comes, and they are put forth. Then blows the wind, and they go down. And then, in lieu of them, grow others out of the wood, or common matter of all things, like unto them. But to endure but for a while is common unto all. Why then shouldest thou so earnestly either seek after these things, or fly from them, as though they should endure for ever? Yet a little while, and thine eyes will be closed up, and for him that carries thee to thy grave shall another mourn within a while after. 35. A good eye must be good to see whatsoever is to be seen, and not green things only, for that is proper to sore eyes. So must a good ear and a good smell be ready for whatsoever is either to be heard or smelt, and a good stomach as indifferent to all kinds of food as a millstone is to whatsoever she was made for to grind. As ready therefore must a sound understanding be for whatsoever shall happen. But he that saith, O that my children might live, and O that all men might commend me for whatsoever I do, is an eye that seeks after green things, or as teeth after that which is tender. 36. There is not any man that is so happy in his death, but that some of those that are by him when he dies will be ready to rejoice at his supposed calamity. Is it one that was virtuous and wise indeed? Will there not some one or other be found who thus will say to himself, Well, now at last shall I be at rest from this pedagogue. He did not indeed otherwise trouble us much, but I know well enough that in his heart he did much condemn us. Thus will they speak of the virtuous, but as for us, alas, how many things be there, for which there be many that glad would be to be rid of us. This therefore, if thou shalt think of whensoever thou diest, thou shalt die the more willingly, when thou shalt think with thyself, I am now to depart from that world, wherein those that have been my nearest friends and acquaintances, they whom I have so much suffered for, so often prayed for, and for whom I have taken such care, even they would have me die, hoping that after my death they shall live happier than they did before. What then should any man desire to continue here any longer? Nevertheless, whensoever thou diest, thou must not be less kind and loving unto them for it, but as before, see them, continue to be their friend, to wish them well, and meekly, and gently to carry thyself towards them, but yet so that on the other side it make thee not the more unwilling to die. But as it fareth with them that die an easy, quick death, whose soul is soon separated from their bodies, so must thy separation from them be. To these had nature joined and annexed me. Now she parts us, I am ready to depart, as from friends and kinsmen, but yet without either reluctancy or compulsion, for this also is according to nature. 37. Use thyself as often as thou seest any man do anything, presently if it be possible to say unto thyself, What is this man's end in his action? But begin this course with thyself first of all, and diligently examine thyself concerning whatsoever thou doest. 38. Remember that which sets a man at work, and hath power over the affections to draw them either one way or the other way, is not any external thing properly, but that which is hidden within every man's dogmata and opinions. That is rhetoric, that is life, that, to speak true, is man himself. As for thy body, which as a vessel or a case compasseth thee about, and the many and curious instruments that it hath annexed unto it, let them not trouble thy thoughts, for of themselves they are but as a carpenter's axe, but that they are born with us and naturally sticking unto us. But otherwise, without the inward cause that hath power to move them and to restrain them, those parts are of themselves of no more use unto us than the shuttle is of itself to the weaver, or the pen to the writer, or the whip to the coachman. The 11th Book 1. The natural properties and privileges of a reasonable soul are that she seeth herself, that she can order and compose herself, that she makes herself as she will herself, that she reaps her own fruits whatsoever, whereas plants, trees, unreasonable creatures, what fruit soever, be it either fruit properly or analogically only, they bear them unto others, and not to themselves. Again, whensoever and wheresoever, sooner or later her life doth end, she hath her own end nevertheless. For it is not with her, as with dancers and players, who if they be interrupted in any part of their action, the whole action must needs be imperfect. But she in what part of time or action soever she be surprised, can make that which she hath in her hand, whatsoever it be, complete and full, so that she may depart with that comfort, I have lived, neither want I anything of that which properly did belong unto me. Again she compasseth the whole world, and penetrateth into the vanity, and mere outside, wanting substance and solidity of it, and stretcheth herself unto the infiniteness of eternity, and the revolution or restoration of all things after a certain period of time, to the same state and place as before. She fetcheth about, and doth comprehend in herself, and considers withal, and sees clearly this, that neither they that shall follow us shall see any new thing that we have not seen, nor they that went before anything more than we, but that he that is once come to 40, if he have any wit at all, can in a manner, for that they are all of one kind, see all things, both past and future. As proper is it, and natural to the soul of man to love her neighbour, to be true and modest, and to regard nothing so much as herself, which is also the property of the law, whereby, by the way it appears, that sound reason and justice comes all to one, and therefore that justice is the chief thing, that reasonable creatures ought to propose unto themselves as their end. 2. A pleasant song or dance, the Pancratiast's exercise, sports that thou art wont to be much taken with, thou shalt easily contemn, if the harmonious voice thou shalt divide into so many particular sounds whereof it doth consist, and of every one in particular shall ask thyself whether this or that sound is it, that doth so conquer thee. For thou wilt be ashamed of it, and so for shame, if accordingly thou shalt consider it, every particular motion and posture by itself. And so for the wrestler's exercise too. Generally then, whatsoever it be besides virtue, and those things that proceed from virtue that thou art subject to be much affected with, remember presently thus to divide it, and by this kind of division in each particular to attain unto the contempt of the whole. This thou must transfer and apply to thy whole life also. 3. That soul which is ever ready, even now presently if need be, from the body, whether by way of extinction or dispersion or continuation in another place and estate to be separated, how blessed and happy is it! But this readiness of it must proceed, not from an obstinate and peremptory resolution of the mind, violently and passionately set upon opposition, as Christians are wont, but from a peculiar judgment, with discretion and gravity, so that others may be persuaded also and drawn to the like example, but without any noise and passionate exclamations. 4. Have I done anything charitably? Then am I benefited by it? See that this upon all occasions may present itself unto thy mind, and never cease to think of it. What is thy profession? To be good. And how should this be well brought to pass, but by certain theorems and doctrines, some concerning the nature of the universe, and some concerning the proper and particular constitution of man. 5. Tragedies were at first brought in and instituted to put men in mind of worldly chances and casualties, that these things in the ordinary course of nature did so happen, that men that were much pleased and delighted by such accidents upon this stage would not by the same things in a greater stage be grieved and afflicted. For here you see what is the end of all such things, and that even they that cry out so mournfully to Cytheron must bear them for all their cries and exclamations, as well as others. And in very truth many good things are spoken by these poets, as that, for example, is an excellent passage. But if so be that I and my 2 children be neglected by the gods, they have some reason even for that, etc. And again, it will but little avail thee to storm and rage against the things themselves, etc. Again, to reap one's life as a ripe ear of corn, and whatsoever else is to be found in them, that is of the same kind. After the tragedy, the ancient comedy was brought in, which had the liberty to inveigh against personal vices, being therefore through this her freedom and liberty of speech of very good use and effect, to restrain men from pride and arrogancy. To which end it was that Diogenes took also the same liberty. After these, what were either the middle or new comedy admitted for, but merely, or for the most part at least, for the delight and pleasure of curious and excellent imitation. It will steal away, look to it, etc. Why, no man denies but that these also have some good things whereof that may be one. But the whole drift and foundation of that kind of dramatical poetry, what is it else but as we have said? 6. How clearly doth it appear unto thee that no other course of thy life could fit a true philosopher's practice better than this very course that thou art now already in. 7. A branch cut off from the continuity of that which was next unto it must needs be cut off from the whole tree. So a man that is divided from another man is divided from the whole society. A branch is cut off by another, but he that hates and is averse cuts himself off from his neighbour, and knows not that at the same time he divides himself from the whole body or corporation. But herein is the gift and mercy of God, the author of this society, in that once cut off we may grow together and become part of the whole again. But if this happen, often the misery is that the further a man is run in this division, the harder he is to be reunited and restored again. And however the branch which, once cut off afterwards, was grafted in, gardeners can tell you is not like that which sprouted together at first, and still continued in the unity of the body. 8. To grow together like fellow branches in matter of good correspondence and affection, but not in matter of opinions. They that shall oppose thee in their right courses, as it is not in their power to divert thee from thy good action, so neither let it be to divert thee from thy good affection towards them. But be it thy care to keep thyself constant in both in a right judgment and action, and in true meekness towards them, that either shall do their endeavour to hinder thee, or at least will be displeased with thee for what thou hast done. For to fail in either in the one to give over for fear, or in the other to forsake thy natural affection towards him, who by nature is both thy friend and thy kinsman, is equally base, and much savouring of the disposition of a cowardly fugitive soldier. 9. It is not possible that any nature should be inferior unto art, since that all arts imitate nature. If this be so, that the most perfect and general nature of all natures should in her operation come short of the skill of arts, is most improbable. Now common is it to all arts to make that which is worse for the better's sake. Much more then doth the common nature do the same. Hence is the first ground of justice. From justice all other virtues have their existence, for justice cannot be preserved, if either we settle our minds and affections upon worldly things, or be apt to be deceived, or rash, and inconstant. 10. The things themselves, which either to get or to avoid thou art put to so much trouble, come not unto thee themselves, but thou in a manner goest unto them. Let then thine own judgment and opinion concerning those things be at rest, and as for the things themselves, they stand still and quiet, without any noise or stir at all, and so shall all pursuing and flying cease. 11. Then is the soul, as Empedocles doth liken it, like unto a sphere or globe, when she is all of one form and figure, when she neither greedily stretcheth out herself unto anything, nor basely contracts herself, or lies flat and dejected, but shineth all with light, whereby she does see and behold the true nature, both that of the universe and her own in particular. 12. Will any contemn me? Let him look to that, upon what grounds he does it. My care shall be that I may never be found either doing or speaking anything that doth truly deserve contempt. Will any hate me? Let him look to that. I, for my part, will be kind and loving unto all, and even unto him that hates me, whomsoever he be, will I be ready to show his error, not by way of exprobation or ostentation of my patience, but ingenuously and meekly, such as was that famous Phocion, if so be that he did not dissemble. For it is inwardly that these things must be, that the gods who look inwardly and not upon the outward appearance may behold a man truly free from all indignation and grief. For what hurt can it be unto thee, whatsoever any man else doth, as long as thou mayest do that which is proper and suitable to thine own nature? Wilt not thou, a man wholly appointed to be both what and as the common good shall require, accept of that which is now seasonable to the nature of the universe? 13. They contemn one another, and yet they seek to please one another. And whilst they seek to surpass one another in worldly pomp and greatness, they most debase and prostitute themselves in their better part one to another. 14. How rotten and insincere is he that saith, I am resolved to carry myself hereafter towards you with all ingenuity and simplicity. O man, what doest thou mean? What needs this profession of thine? The thing itself will show it. It ought to be written upon thy forehead. No sooner thy voice is heard than thy countenance must be able to show what is in thy mind, even as he that is loved knows presently by the looks of his sweetheart what is in her mind. Such must he be for all the world, that is truly simple and good, as he whose armholes are offensive, that whosoever stands by, as soon as ever he comes near him, may as it were smell him, whether he will or no. But the affectation of simplicity is nowise laudable. There is nothing more shameful than perfidious friendship. Above all things, that must be avoided. However, true goodness, simplicity, and kindness cannot so be hidden, but that, as we have already said, in the very eyes and countenance they will show themselves. 15. To live happily is an inward power of the soul, when she is affected with indifferency towards those things that are by their nature indifferent. To be thus affected, she must consider all worldly objects both divided and whole, remembering withal that no object can of itself beget any opinion in us, neither can come to us, but stands without still and quiet, but that we ourselves beget, and, as it were, print in ourselves opinions concerning them. Now it is in our power not to print them, and if they creep in and lurk in some corner, it is in our power to wipe them off. Remembering, moreover, that this care and circumspection of thine is to continue but for a while, and then thy life will be at an end. And what should hinder but that thou mayest do well with all these things? For if they be according to nature, rejoice in them, and let them be pleasing and acceptable unto thee. But if they be against nature, seek thou that which is according to thine own nature, and whether it be for thy credit or no, use all possible speed for the attainment of it, for no man ought to be blamed for seeking his own good and happiness. 16. Of everything thou must consider from whence it came, of what things it doth consist, and into what it will be changed, what will be the nature of it, or what it will be like unto when it is changed, and that it can suffer no hurt by this change. And as for other men's either foolishness or wickedness, that it may not trouble and grieve thee. First, generally thus, what reference have I unto these? And that we are all born for one another's good. Then more particularly, after another consideration, as a ram is first in a flock of sheep, and a bull in a herd of cattle, so am I born to rule over them. Begin yet higher, even from this. If atoms be not the beginning of all things, than which to believe nothing can be more absurd, then must we needs grant that there is a nature that doth govern the universe. If such a nature, then are all worse things made for the better's sake, and all better for one another's sake. Secondly, what manner of men they be at board and upon their beds and so forth. But above all things, how they are forced by their opinions that they hold to do what they do, and even those things that they do, with what pride and self-conceit they do them. Thirdly, that if they do these things rightly, thou hast no reason to be grieved. But if not rightly, it must needs be that they do them against their wills, and through mere ignorance. For as, according to Plato's opinion, no soul doth willingly err, so by consequent neither doth it anything otherwise than it ought, but against her will. Therefore are they grieved whensoever they hear themselves charged either of injustice, or unconscionableness, or covetousness, or in general of any injurious kind of dealing towards their neighbours. Fourthly, that thou thyself doest transgress in many things, and art even such another as they are. And though perchance thou doest forbear the very act of some sins, yet hast thou in thyself a habitual disposition to them, but that either through fear or vainglory, or some such other ambitious foolish respect, thou art restrained. Fifthly, that whether they have sinned or no, thou doest not understand perfectly, for many things are done by way of discreet policy, and generally a man must know many things first, before he be able truly and judiciously to judge of another man's action. Sixthly, that whensoever thou doest take on grievously, or makest great woe, little doest thou remember then that a man's life is but for a moment of time, and that within a while we shall all be in our graves. Seventhly, that it is not the sins and transgressions themselves that trouble us properly, for they have their existence in their minds and understandings only, that commit them, but our own opinions concerning those sins. Remove then, and be content to part with that conceit of thine, that it is a grievous thing, and thou hast removed thine anger. But how should I remove it? How? Reasoning with thyself that it is not shameful. For if that which is shameful be not the only true evil that is, thou also will be driven whilst thou doest follow the common instinct of nature. To avoid that which is evil, to commit many unjust things, and to become a thief, and anything that will make to the attainment of thy intended worldly ends. Eighthly, how many things may and do oftentimes follow upon such fits of anger and grief, far more grievous in themselves than those very things which we are so grieved or angry for. Ninthly, that meekness is a thing unconquerable, if it be true and natural, and not affected or hypocritical. For how shall even the most fierce and malicious that thou shalt conceive be able to hold on against thee, if thou shalt still continue meek and loving unto him, and that even at that time, when he is about to do thee wrong, thou shalt be well disposed and in good temper, with all meekness to teach him and to instruct him better? As for example, my son, we were not born for this, to hurt and annoy one another. It will be thy hurt, not mine, my son, and so to show him forcibly and fully that it is so in very deed, and that neither bees do it one to another, nor any other creatures that are naturally sociable. But this thou must do, not scoffingly, not by way of exprobation, but tenderly, without any harshness of words. Neither must thou do it by way of exercise or ostentation, that they that are by and hear thee may admire thee, but so always that nobody be privy to it, but himself alone. Yea, though there be more present at the same time. These 9 particular heads, as so many gifts from the Muses, see that thou remember well, and begin one day, whilst thou art yet alive, to be a man indeed. But on the other side thou must take heed, as much to flatter them as to be angry with them. For both are equally uncharitable and equally hurtful. And in thy passions take it presently to thy consideration, that to be angry is not the part of a man, but that to be meek and gentle, as it savours of more humanity, so of more manhood. That in this there is strength and nerves, or vigour and fortitude, whereof anger and indignation is altogether void. For the nearer everything is unto unpassionateness, the nearer it is unto power. And as grief doth proceed from weakness, so doth anger. For both he that is angry and that grieveth, have received a wound, and cowardly have, as it were, yielded themselves unto their affections. If thou wilt have a 10th also, receive this 10th gift from Hercules, the guide and leader of the Muses. That is a madman's part, to look that there should be no wicked men in the world, because it is impossible. Now for a man to brook well enough that there should be wicked men in the world, but not to endure that any should transgress against himself, is against all equity, and indeed tyrannical. 17. 4 several dispositions or inclinations there be of the mind and understanding, which to be aware of thou must carefully observe. And whensoever thou doest discover them, thou must rectify them, saying to thyself concerning every one of them, the imagination is not necessary, this is uncharitable, this thou shalt speak as another man's slave or instrument, than which nothing can be more senseless and absurd. For the 4th, thou shalt sharply check and upbraid thyself, for that thou doest suffer that more divine part in thee, to become subject and obnoxious to that more ignoble part of thy body, and the gross lusts and concupiscences thereof. 18. What portion soever, either of air or fire, there be in thee, although by nature it tend upwards, submitting nevertheless to the ordinance of the universe, it abides here below in this mixed body. So whatsoever is in thee, either earthly or humid, although by nature it tend downwards, yet is it against its nature both raised upwards, and standing or consistent. So obedient are even the elements themselves to the universe, abiding patiently wheresoever, though against their nature, they are placed, until the sound as it were of their retreat and separation. Is it not a grievous thing, then, that thy reasonable part only should be disobedient, and should not endure to keep its place, yea, though it be nothing enjoined that is contrary unto it, but that only which is according to its nature? For we cannot say of it, when it is disobedient, as we say of the fire or air, that it tends upwards towards its proper element, for then goes it the quite contrary way. For the motion of the mind to any injustice or incontinency, or to sorrow or to fear, is nothing else but a separation from nature. Also when the mind is grieved for anything that is happened by the divine providence, then doth it likewise forsake its own place. For it was ordained unto holiness and godliness, which specially consist in a humble submission to God and his providence in all things, as well as unto justice, these are being part of those duties, which as naturally sociable we are bound unto, and without which we cannot happily converse one with another, yea, and the very ground and fountain indeed of all just actions. 19. He that hath not one and the selfsame general end always as long as he liveth, cannot possibly be one and the selfsame man always. But this will not suffice except thou add also what ought to be this general end. For as the general conceit and apprehension of all those things, which upon no certain ground are by the greater part of men deemed good, cannot be uniform and agreeable, but that only which is limited and restrained by some certain proprieties and conditions, as of community, that nothing be conceived good, which is not commonly and public good. So must the end also that we propose unto ourselves be common and sociable. For he that doth direct all his own private motions and purposes to that end, all his actions will be agreeable and uniform, and by that means will be still the same man. 20. Remember the fable of the country mouse and the city mouse, and the great fright and terror that this was put into. 21. Socrates was wont to call the common conceits and opinions of men the common bugbears of the world, the proper terror of silly children. 22. The Lacedaemonians, at their public spectacles, were wont to appoint seats and forms for their strangers in the shadow. They themselves were content to sit anywhere. 23. What Socrates answered unto Perdiccas, why he did not come unto him, lest of all deaths I should die the worst kind of death, said he, that is not able to requite the good that hath been done unto me. 24. In the ancient mystical letters of the Ephesians there was an item that a man should always have in his mind some one or other of the ancient worthies. 25. The Pythagoreans were wont betimes in the morning, the first thing they did, to look up unto the heavens, to put themselves in mind of them who constantly and invariably did perform their task, as also to put themselves in mind of orderliness, or good order, and of purity, and of naked simplicity. For no star or planet hath any cover before it. 26. How Socrates looked, when he was fain to gird himself with a skin, Xanthippe, his wife, having taken away his clothes, and carried them abroad with her, and what he said to his fellows and friends who were ashamed, and out of respect to him, did retire themselves when they saw him thus decked. 27. In matter of writing or reading thou must needs be taught before thou can do either, much more in matter of life. For thou art born a mere slave to thy senses and brutish affections, destitute without teaching of all true knowledge and sound reason. 28. My heart smiled within me. They will accuse even virtue herself with heinous and opprobrious words. 29. As they that long after figs in winter when they cannot be had, so are they that long after children before they be granted them. 30. As often as a father kisseth his child, he should say secretly with himself, said Epictetus, tomorrow perchance shall he die. But these words be ominous. No words ominous, said he, that signify anything that is natural. In very truth and deed, not more ominous than this, to cut down grapes when they are ripe. Green grapes, ripe grapes, dried grapes, or raisins, so many changes and mutations of one thing, not into that which was not absolutely, but rather so many several changes and mutations, not into that which hath no being at all, but into that which is not yet in being. 31. Of the free will there is no thief or robber. Out of Epictetus, whose is this also, that we should find a certain art and method of assenting, and that we should always observe with great care and heed the inclinations of our minds, that they may always be with their due restraint and reservation, always charitable and according to the true worth of every present object. And as for earnest longing, that we should altogether avoid it, and to use averseness in those things only that wholly depend of our own wills. It is not about ordinary petty matters, believe it, that all our strife and contention is, but whether with the vulgar we should be mad, or by the help of philosophy wise and sober, said he. 32. Socrates said, "What will you have, the souls of reasonable or unreasonable creatures?" Of reasonable. But what? Of those whose reason is sound and perfect, or of those whose reason is vitiated and corrupted? Of those whose reason is sound and perfect. Why then labour ye not for such? Because we have them already. What then do ye so strive and contend between you? The 12th Book. 1. Whatsoever thou doest, hereafter aspire unto, thou mayest even now enjoy and possess, if thou doest not envy thyself thine own happiness. And that will be, if thou shalt forget all that is past, and for the future refer thyself wholly to the divine providence, and shalt bend and apply all thy present thoughts and intentions to holiness and righteousness. To holiness, in accepting willingly whatsoever is sent by the divine providence, as being that which the nature of the universe hath appointed unto thee, which also hath appointed thee for that, whatsoever it be. To righteousness, in speaking the truth freely and without ambiguity, and in doing all things justly and discreetly. Now in this good course, let not other men's either wickedness or opinion or voice hinder thee, no, nor the sense of this thy pampered mass of flesh, for let that which suffers look to itself. If therefore whensoever the time of thy departing shall come, thou shalt readily leave all things, and shalt respect thy mind only, and that divine part of thine, and this shall be thine only fear, not that some time or other thou shalt cease to live, but thou shalt never begin to live according to nature. Then shalt thou be a man indeed, worthy of that world from which thou hadst thy beginning. Then shalt thou cease to be a stranger in thy country, and to wonder at those things that happen daily, as things strange and unexpected, and anxiously to depend of divers things that are not in thy power. 2. God beholds our minds and understandings bare and naked from these material vessels and outsides and all earthly dross. For with his simple and pure understanding he pierceth into our inmost and purest parts, which from his, as it were by a water-pipe and channel, first flowed and issued. This if thou also shalt use to do, thou shalt rid thyself of that manifold luggage, wherewith thou art round about encumbered. For he that does regard neither his body, nor his clothing, nor his dwelling, nor any such external furniture, must needs gain unto himself great rest and ease. 3 things there be in all which thou doest consist of, thy body, thy life, and thy mind. Of these the 2 former are so far forth thine, as that thou art bound to take care for them. But the 3rd alone is that which is properly thine. If then thou shalt separate from thyself, that is from thy mind, whatsoever other men either do or say, or whatsoever thou thyself hast heretofore either done or said, and all troublesome thoughts concerning the future, and whatsoever as either belonging to thy body or life, is without the jurisdiction of thine own will, and whatsoever in the ordinary course of human chances and accidents doth happen unto thee, so that thy mind, keeping herself loose and free from all outward coincidental entanglements, always in a readiness to depart, shall live by herself and to herself, doing that which is just, accepting whatsoever doth happen, and speaking the truth always. If I say, thou shalt separate from thy mind whatsoever by sympathy might adhere unto it, and all time both past and future, and shalt make thyself in all points and respects like unto Empedocles his allegorical sphere, all round and circular, etc., and shall think of no longer life than that which is now present, then shalt thou be truly able to pass the remainder of thy days without troubles and distractions, nobly and generously disposed, and in good favour and correspondency with that spirit which is within thee. 3. I have often wondered how it should come to pass that every man, loving himself best, should more regard other men's opinions concerning himself than his own. For if any god or grave master standing by should command any of us to think nothing by himself but what he should presently speak out, no man were able to endure it, though but for 1 day. Thus do we fear more what our neighbours will think of us than what we ourselves. 4. How come it to pass that the gods, having ordered all other things so well and so lovingly, should be overseen in this one only thing? That whereas then hath been some very good men that have made many covenants as it were with God, and by many holy actions and outward services contracted a kind of familiarity with him, that these men, when once they are dead, should never be restored to life, but be extinct for ever. But this thou mayest be sure of, that this, if it be so indeed, would never have been so ordered by the gods, had it been fit otherwise. For certainly it was possible, had it been more just so, and had it been according to nature, the nature of the universe would easily have borne it. But now, because it is not so, if so, be that it be not so indeed, be therefore confident that it was not fit it should be so, for thou seest thyself, that now seeking after this matter, how freely thou doest argue and contest with God. But were not the gods both just and good in the highest degree, thou durst not thus reason with them. Now if just and good, it could not be that in the creation of the world they should either unjustly or unreasonably oversee anything. 5. Use thyself even unto those things that thou doest at first despair of. For the left hand we see, which for the most part lieth idle because not used, yet doth it hold the bridle with more strength than the right, because it hath been used unto it. 6. Let these be the objects of thy ordinary meditation, to consider what manner of men both for the soul and body we ought to be, whensoever death shall surprise us, the shortness of this our mortal life, the immense vastness of the time that hath been before and will be after us, the frailty of every worldly material object, all these things to consider and behold clearly in themselves, all disguisement of external outside being removed and taken away. Again, to consider the efficient causes of all things, the proper ends and references of all actions. What pain is in itself, what pleasure, what death, what fame or honour, how every man is the true and proper ground of his own rest and tranquillity, and that no man can truly be hindered by any other. That all is but conceit and opinion. As for the use of thy dogmata, thou must carry thyself in the practice of them, rather like unto a Pancratiastes, or one that at the same time both fights and wrestles with hands and feet, than a gladiator. For this, if he lose his sword that he fights with, he is gone, whereas the other hath still his hand free, which he may easily turn and manage at his will. 7. All worldly things thou must behold and consider, dividing them into matter, form, and reference, or their proper end. 8. How happy is man in this his power that hath been granted unto him, that he needs not do anything but what God shall approve, and that he may embrace contentedly whatsoever God doth send unto him. 9. Whatsoever doth happen in the ordinary course and consequence of natural events, neither the gods, for it is not possible that they either wittingly or unwittingly should do anything amiss, nor men, for it is through ignorance, and therefore against their wills that they do anything amiss, must be accused. None then must be accused. 10. How ridiculous and strange is he that wonders at anything that happens in this life in the ordinary course of nature. 11. Either fate, and that either an absolute necessity, and unavoidable decree, or a placable and flexible providence, or all is a mere casual confusion, void of all order and government. If an absolute and unavoidable necessity, why doest thou resist? If a placable and exorable providence, make thyself worthy of the divine help and assistance. If all be a mere confusion without any moderator or governor, then hast thou reason to congratulate thyself that in such a general flood of confusion thou thyself hast obtained a reasonable faculty, whereby thou mayest govern thine own life and actions. But if thou beest carried away with the flood, it must be thy body perchance, or thy life, or some other thing that belongs unto them that is carried away. Thy mind and understanding cannot. Or should it be so that the light of a candle indeed is still bright and lightsome until it be put out, and should truth and righteousness and temperance cease to shine in thee, whilst thou thyself hast any being? 12. At the conceit and apprehension that such and such a one hath sinned, thus reason with thyself, or do I know whether this be a sin indeed, as it seems to be? But if it be, what do I know but that he himself hath already condemned himself for it? And that is all one as if a man should scratch and tear his own face, an object of compassion rather than of anger. Again, that he that would not have a vicious man to sin is like unto him that would not have moisture in the fig, nor children to whelp, nor a horse to neigh, nor anything else that in the course of nature is necessary. For what shall he do that hath such a habit? If thou therefore beest powerful and eloquent, remedy it if thou canst. 13. If it not be fitting, do it not. If it be not true, speak it not. Ever maintain thine own purpose and resolution, free from all compulsion and necessity. 14. Of everything that presents itself unto thee, to consider what the true nature of it is, and to unfold it, as it were, by dividing it into that which is formal, that which is material, the true use or end of it, and the just time that it is appointed to last. 15. It is high time for thee to understand that there is somewhat in thee better and more divine than either thy passions or thy sensual appetites and affections. What is now the object of my mind? Is it fear, or suspicion, or lust, or any such thing? To do nothing rashly without some certain end, let that be thy first care. The next, to have no other end than the common good. For, alas, yet a little while, and thou art no more. No more will any, either of those things that now thou seest, or of those men that now are living, be any more. For all things are by nature appointed soon to be changed, turned and corrupted, that other things might succeed in their room. 16. Remember that all is but opinion, and all opinion depends of the mind. Take thine opinion away, and then as a ship that hath stricken in within the arms and mouth of the harbour, a present calm, all things safe and steady, a bay not capable of any storms and tempests, as the poet hath it. 17. No operation, whatsoever it be, ceasing for a while, can be truly said to suffer any evil, because it is at an end. Neither can he that is the author of that operation, for this very respect, because his operation is at an end, be said to suffer any evil. Likewise then, neither can the whole body of all our actions, which is our life, if in time it cease, be said to suffer any evil for this very reason, because it is at an end, nor he truly be said to have been ill affected, that did put a period to this series of actions. Now this time or certain period depends of the determination of nature, sometimes of particular nature, as when a man dieth old, but of nature in general. However, the parts whereof thus changing one after another, the whole world still continues fresh and new. Now that is ever best and most seasonable, which is for the good of the whole. Thus it appears that death of itself can neither be hurtful to any in particular, because it is not a shameful thing, for neither is it a thing that depends of our own will, nor of itself contrary to the common good. And generally, as it is both expedient and seasonable to the whole, that in that respect it must needs be good. It is that also which is brought unto us by the order and appointment of the divine providence, so that he whose will and mind in these things runs along with the divine ordinance, and by this concurrence of his will and mind with the divine providence, is led and driven along, as it were, by God himself, may truly be termed and esteemed the Theophoridos, or divinely led and inspired. 18. These three things thou must have always in a readiness. First, concerning thine own actions, whether thou doest nothing either idly or otherwise than justice and equity do require, and concerning those things that happen unto thee externally, that either they happen unto thee by chance or by providence, of which two to accuse either is equally against reason. Secondly, what like unto our bodies are whilst yet rude and imperfect until they be animated, and from their animation until their expiration, of what things they are compounded, and into what things they shall be dissolved. Thirdly, how vain all things will appear unto thee when from on high, as it were, looking down, thou shalt contemplate all things upon earth, and the wonderful mutability that they are subject unto, considering withal the infinite both greatness and variety of things aerial and things celestial that are round about it, and that as often as thou shalt behold them, thou shalt still see the same, as the same things, so the same shortness of continuance of all those things. And behold, these be the things that we are so proud and puffed up for. 19. Cast away from thee opinion, and thou art safe. And what is it that hinders thee from casting of it away? When thou art grieved at anything, hast thou forgotten that all things happen according to the nature of the universe, and that him only it concerns who is in fault, and moreover, that what is now done is that which from ever hath been done in the world, and will ever be done, and is now done everywhere? How nearly all men are allied one to another by a kindred not of blood, nor of seed, but of the same mind. Thou hast also forgotten that every man's mind partakes of the deity, and issueth from thence, and that no man can properly call anything his own, no, not his son, nor his body, nor his life, for that they all proceed from that one who is the giver of all things, that all things are but opinion, that no man lives properly, but that very instant of time which is now present, and therefore that no man, whensoever he dieth, can properly be said to lose any more than an instant of time. 20. Let thy thoughts ever run upon them who once for some one thing or other were moved with extraordinary indignation, who were once in the highest pitch of either honour or calamity, or mutual hatred and enmity, or of any other fortune or condition whatsoever. Then consider what's now become of all those things. All is turned to smoke, all to ashes, and a mere fable, and perchance not so much as a fable. As also whatsoever is of this nature, as Fabius Catulinus in the field, Lucius Lupus, and Stertinius at Veii, Tiberius at Capri, and Velleius Rufus, and all such examples of vehement prosecution in worldly matters, let these also run in thy mind at the same time, and how vile every object of such earnest and vehement prosecution is, and how much more agreeable to true philosophy it is for a man to carry himself in every matter that offers itself justly and moderately, as one that followeth the gods with all simplicity. For a man to be proud and high-conceited, that he is not proud and high-conceited, is of all kind of pride and presumption the most intolerable. 21. To them that ask thee, where hast thou seen the gods, or how knowest thou certainly that there be gods, that thou art so devout in their worship? I answer first of all, that even to the very eye they are in some manner visible and apparent. Secondly, neither have I ever seen mine own soul, and yet I respect and honour it. So then for the gods, by the daily experience that I have of their power and providence towards myself and others, I know certainly that they are, and therefore worship them. 22. Herein doth consist happiness of life, for a man to know thoroughly the true nature of everything, what is the matter, and what is the form of it, with all his heart and soul, ever to do that which is just, and to speak the truth. What then remaineth but to enjoy thy life in a course and coherence of good actions, one upon another immediately succeeding, and never interrupted, though for never so little a while. 23. There is but one light of the sun, though it be intercepted by walls and mountains and other 1,000 objects. There is but one common substance of the whole world, though it be concluded and restrained into several different bodies, in number infinite. There is but one common soul, though divided into innumerable particular essences and natures. So is there but one common intellectual soul, though it seem to be divided. And as for all other parts of those generals which we have mentioned, as either sensitive souls or subjects, these of themselves, as naturally irrational, have no common mutual reference one unto another, though many of them contain a mind or reasonable faculty in them, whereby they are ruled and governed. But of every reasonable mind, this the particular nature, that it hath reference to whatsoever is of her own kind, and desireth to be united. Neither can this common affection or mutual unity and correspondency be here intercepted or divided, or confined to particulars, as those other common things are. 24. What doest thou desire? To live long? What? To enjoy the operations of a sensitive soul, or of the appetitive faculty? Or wouldst thou grow and then decrease again? Wouldst thou long be able to talk, to think, and reason with thyself? Which of all these seems unto thee a worthy object of thy desire? Now if of all these thou doest find that they be but little worth in themselves, proceed on unto the last, which is in all things to follow God and reason. But for a man to grieve that by death he shall be deprived of any of these things is both against God and reason. 25. What a small portion of vast and infinite eternity it is that is allowed unto every one of us, and how soon it vanisheth into the general age of the world. Of the common substance and of the common soul also, what a small portion is allotted unto us, and in what a little clod of the whole earth, as it were, it is that thou doest crawl. After thou shalt rightly have considered these things with thyself, fancy not anything else in the world any more to be of any weight and moment but this, to do that only which thine own nature doth require, and to conform thyself to that which the common nature doth afford. 26. What is the present estate of my understanding? For herein lieth all indeed. As for all other things, they are without the compass of mine own will, and if without the compass of my will, then are they as dead things unto me, and as it were mere smoke. 27. To stir up a man to the contempt of death, this among other things is of good power and efficacy, that even they who esteemed pleasure to be happiness, and pain misery, did nevertheless many of them contemn death as much as any. And can death be terrible to him, to whom that only seems good, which in the ordinary course of nature is seasonable? To him, to whom, whether his actions be many or few, so they be all good, is all one, and who, whether he behold the things of the world being always the same either for many years, or for few years only, is altogether indifferent. O man, as a citizen thou hast lived, and conversed in this great city, the world. Whether just for so many years or no, what is it unto thee? Thou hast lived, thou mayest be sure, as long as the laws and orders of the city required, which may be the common comfort of all. Why then should it be grievous unto thee, if, not a tyrant nor an unjust judge, but the same nature that brought thee in, doth now send thee out of the world, as if the praetor should fairly dismiss him from the stage, whom he had taken in to act a while? Oh, but the play is not yet at an end. There are but 3 acts yet acted of it. Thou hast well said, for in matter of life 3 acts is the whole play. Now to set a certain time to every man's acting belongs unto him only, who as first he was of thy composition, so is now the cause of thy dissolution. As for thyself, thou hast to do with neither. Go thy ways then, well pleased and contented, for so is he that dismisseth thee.